Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 103, where we will cover New Spring, chapters 1 through 5. I'm your host Mo, and I'm joined once again by my accepted friends, Willie.
I am accepted, yes, and I am proud.
And Jody.
I'm accepted in some circles, but not all.
Most.
Mine.
No, Willie's
You're accepted here.
In his circle of 3, I am not accepted.
It's not called a circle, it's called a heart.
Oh, I would think if there's 3, it would be a triangle. A heart is not a
No,
triangle.
that's a tripod. It's and hearts are triangular in shape. So,
Sure they
Vaguely,
are.
yes.
well, imagine fairyland. Like, come on, Jody.
Fairyland?
Where's your fairyland, not hairyland.
I said like ferry. What, to cross rivers? I don't know.
Anyway,
Jesus Christ, how did we get so off the rails so quickly?
well,
It's a new day.
greeted
It's a
us,
new dawn.
and then you said we're recording
It's a
stuff,
new
so then
spring.
we just go.
Rails out the window.
Yeah, there was a lot of preamble before we recorded, so people know.
There was.
My family's getting ready to leave for the beach, and we wanted them to stop making vast amounts of noise before we recorded. So yeah, the energy's already flowing, the hype is already there.
The hype is there. I'm amped.
Yeah.
Speaking of amped, how are you guys feeling about reading New Spring?
Torn.
Ooh. Why are you torn?
Interesting.
I'm already torn. No, listen.
God.
I was so keen. When I was at the camping, I read the first 2, glamping before Willie shits himself.
He wrecks you.
I read those first 2 chapters and I felt like I was a new man. And then when I had to read these 3 chapters, I was fluking you, Moritz. I was like, why the fuck did he give me 3 chapters? All of them so bulky. And Willie got 2 chapters that were 20 minutes on the Kindle. And then I read the last chapter and I came out of my slump and I was like, wow, I love this last chapter. And now everything's okay.
Look, it's not an exact science, right? I apply some logic to the chapter allocations and stuff, but I think on this one it was less calculated and more just let's alternate, at least for
I'm
the time
not
being.
complaining.
Willie's chapters can be summarized in 5 minutes.
You get the lamb chapter,
Lamb?
then you get the lamb,
The succulent land
the
chapter.
succulent lamb chapter. You got to carry the weight of the others. So just shush your mouth and be happy that you got some action.
Okay. I did get some action
How many times have you guys read this book?
The
once.
second time I'm reading it,
Same, exact same. I read it the
and
one
I
time when it
remember
came out.
nothing of it. Nothing.
Very little, same.
I remember my first copy that I purchased of this was the bigger sort of. It was almost an A3 size, and it was a green cover.
It's the one I have.
Is that the one you have? Yeah. And I got the new version one that Gerald posted a photo of, and I told him to shut up and take the money, just buy it. And I tell you what, I had the dreaded nose disease that everyone hates, the C word. And I climbed in bed at 7:30 at night the one night. Me and the dog on the bed, and I opened the book and I said, this is a good time now because I've been sleeping quite a bit. So, and I couldn't put it down. And it was nearly midnight when I'm like, oh gosh, I got to go to sleep. I just kept on reading and reading.
It's when you texted me at 11:30 going, what are the chapter allocations again? I was like, what are you doing awake reading?
It is refreshing, is what it was.
That I can agree with, yes. And just to clarify, Willie's dreaded nose disease starts with a C. It's not cocaine.
Oh, it's COVID.
Okay, COVID. Gotcha.
Not a cold.
So many options there,
COVID.
Willie.
Man flu, whatever you want to call it.
Look, a lot of our listeners have also written in and said, they're so stoked we're doing New Spring, and everyone is looking at this as a soothing balm after the perceived dreariness of Crossroads of Twilight and everything leading up to it. I have to say, my experience so far after the first 5 chapters is
Well,
look.
you can't always have it buttered your way.
No. And I was laughing at myself thinking now that everyone's excited, now I'm ambivalent. I'm I could take it or leave it, whatever.
It's not groundbreaking.
Born contrarian.
It's more
No.
Aes Sedai doing Aes Sedai things.
Loads of Aes Sedai.
Yeah,
like just a quick one. Did you guys in your chapters do any research on the named Aes Sedai that you got in there? 'Cause I
Not
did as
a
well.
single one, because if they were really important, we remember who they are and we know where they are. We don't need to
That's
do
not
any
the
back
truth.
reading.
That's not how that works.
We
at
would
all.
remember. Do you hear the words coming out of your mouth?
Well, look, you forget all the time, Jody.
Just
I
true.
kind of recognize. I mean, Alana's name is in there,
shit.
and Elida.
Yeah.
So, and then I also know Captain Pedantic is on our team, so he would have gone and made a list of every
did.
single name that popped up, and I was just like, why
did
do I
do
have to
that,
do double
yes.
homework? I'm just going to leave that to Mo and tell a good story.
damn
I'll
it.
bring the narrative, and he'll bring the fact.
That's right. That's what I think as well, Villy. Sometimes I just go like, no, Moritz has got this handled, I'm sure. I'll focus on just the general overview of what happens, and then
The vibes.
the vibes.
You have teacher and you have students.
Yeah.
We just partake in the lesson and try and bring our best to get a F.
No, you're a pass.
Just a pass.
I need at least a D.
Pass.
Was a
A
D a
D.
pass?
D.
I don't remember. I don't think so.
Ooh, you've given me an
Nah,
idea. I should be
who knows?
grading your contributions every episode.
Fuck you, Villy. Why you bring this
You know
up
what
now?
the best thing is? Like, now, I would always outscore Jody. There's no doubt about it.
Bring on the scores.
I
Moritz.
remember at least to pick a favorite moment.
Yes, make it a competition. I like this.
Yeah. If I'm being graded on choosing a favorite moments, then Villy wins.
Jody and Mo, just both of you remember, you got to treat me nicely now on this podcast for at least the next 5 months, 3 months, however long it takes for us to finish our D&D campaign, because I'm DM the next time round. I'm the boss next.
Uh-oh. All right.
Just my last thing I wanted to say about like New Spring as a whole is that I also own the graphic novel, and I think you have it as well, Joe.
I do.
I wonder, is the one, I haven't even looked at it, but is the one volume the entirety of New Spring, or is it sort of just like, is the first graphic novel just the first couple chapters?
I bought the comics when they first came out, so it's like thin little comic books. So you got the compendium as one book.
I did,
So
yes.
I think
Okay,
your version is the whole thing.
Okay, I should just go check. I mean, it'd be very easy. It is literally within arm's reach of me. Just
I've got them, but they're still wrapped in plastic and in their little sleeves. I'm like trying to keep them
Wow.
in pristine condition.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm still
I'm
missing a
wondering
few.
if like maybe looking at the pictures will sort of amp me up a bit more, you know, like maybe get me a bit more excited. I am childish that way. A cool picture does get me
Oh
excited.
yeah, no, the artwork's really nice. I like it. An Ogier
Okay.
looks like an Ogier.
Yes, how novel.
Yes. Rest in peace,
all right,
Loyal.
God, rest in peace, Wheel of Time on Prime. Right, now, try your best not to get whiplash as we dip our toes back into the main narrative in everyone's favorite section called Callbacks.
It's like, how the hell can we already have callbacks? We just started the book.
Oh no, we got a bunch of callbacks from Crossroads of Twilight and before even, and listener contributions to the same effect. So let's mow through these and get started on New Spring proper. Joe, in the previous episode, you said something along the lines of, let the lambs bring forth. Were you quoting the Bible?
No, I was quoting the prophecy of the dragon. Let the fields bring forth lambs when the Dragon Reborn returns and stuff. It was a really weird biblical sounding line in there.
Okay, because Psalm 144 verse 13 goes, that our garners may be full, affording all manner of store, that our sheep may bring forth thousands and 10,000s in our streets. Some translations
In the
say...
streets. Okay.
Some translations say in the fields. I think that's the King James version. But yeah, like that was a biblical
No,
verse.
it's prophecy of the dragon. I'll find
okay.
it.
I'll have
I'll
to go.
Google that so long while you carry on.
Excellent, thank you. It gives you an excuse not to listen to my pedantry.
Yeah.
Billy, you mentioned that parents' family is all dead in Emansfield, and you lumped the Lewins in there as well, but Master Lewin is still alive. It was just his actual family.
Yeah, I realized that. And I thought you'd fix it probably in editing, but you didn't. So
Well, I didn't
there
know
we
at
have
the
it.
time I was editing, but now when I was doing callbacks, I was like, wait, isn't Master Lewin still alive? And he does still play a role, which is cool. So I'm excited to see him again.
I got it. Let the Prince of the Morning sing to the land that green things will grow and the valleys give forth lambs, is the line I was referring
Interesting. Okay.
But hold on. Isn't it the Tuathan that, or the early thinkers, the early Aiel that sung to the trees, the Chora tree?
to. Yeah. Sure.
So what?
They sung to
How's
everything.
Rand supposed to sing to everything going green?
This is prophecy, man. Don't
He
take
is
it literally.
He is a
Paul.
tinker. He is the descendant of the
Of
early
the Aiel.
So
Oh, okay. Yes, there we go. Problem solved.
wow, no callback for that one. Nice, Vinny.
Phew.
Oh, it was me. Nice, Jody. All right, carry on, Moritz.
All right. So, we were talking about how many men Massima had in his force, because we were talking about Perrin. He's got about 2,000
yeah.
people, and then Massima's force, and how much of a difference are these 15,000 or however many Sean Chan going to make? It seems like his force seems to be close to around 20,000 men. But apparently in the fight against the Shido, they take heavy losses. Like, they are absolutely mowed down by these like seasoned warriors, which is great.
There was much rejoicing
Yes.
and bringing forth of lambs.
The circus song is called Entrance of the Gladiators by Julius Fuchik, who lived between 1872 and 1916. There you go.
Gladiators.
I'm going to make two assumptions up there. That it's definitely not how his surname is pronounced. I think you wrecked that one.
Villy knows a lot
not that I
about
can do-
I
pronunciation.
Googled the pronunciation and listened to it and made sure that I got it right. So feel free to correct me.
Oh,
I'm
Villy.
not. There's no way. I'm just going to point out that you probably got it wrong.
A bold gamble, Villy, but one I'm afraid that is not going to pay off.
Damn it.
We asked, what is the overlap between Egwene and Gawain's time in the White Tower? Because it came up like their whole relationship and like how much time did they really have to fall in love? Egwene meets Gawain in chapter 24 of The Great Hunt in the Tower. In chapter 38, Leandrin lures the girls away from the White Tower, and in chapter 39, they're in the ways already. So like a couple chapters in book time. About 90 days in total in Tower overlap, but at that point, it was Galad that was interested in Egwene. You remember, like he was the one that was sort of pursuing her. And it's 418 days later that Gawain and Egwene run into each other again in Cairhien and then start their relationship in earnest.
That's enough. 90 days.
They had 90 days in the total together. Not much happened, but
I
then
knew
in
I was
Cairhien,
going to
things
marry
kicked
my
off.
wife within 90 days. Yeah.
I knew within a couple hours.
Well, I knew in a couple of seconds. I'm the winner. Moritz.
Milliseconds.
I like to play this game. I know what I want to order when I walk into the restaurant, mostly because I go to places I know.
Okay.
Is that a metaphor for
I don't
something? Or is he just...
Let's move on before we start asking Villy what the restaurant, quote unquote, in his analogy actually is.
It's the golden curtain.
A bolt of silk is a commercial unit of length or area used to measure finished cloth. A bolt. Generally speaking, one bolt represents a strip of cloth 100 yards long, but the width varies according to the fabric. There you go, Joe. Bolt
Yeah,
of
that
silk.
makes sense. 100 yards is a bolt, of course.
91.4
lot of yards
meters
for one
for us.
place.
Of course it is.
How's this, Jody?
No.
On April 30, 1993, during a quarterfinal match against Magdalena Malieva at the Citizen Cup in Hamburg, not Wimbledon, a German man named Gunther Pasch, an obsessed fan of Sellers' rival Graf, ran from the middle of the crowd to the edge of the court during a break between games and stabbed Sellers with a boning knife between the shoulder blades to a depth of 1.3 centimeters. She was quickly taken to hospital. Her physical injuries took several weeks to heal, but she stayed away from the competitive tennis for more than 2 years after that. So he must have hit like a vertebra or something, like 1.5 centimeters is the only distance it
Also,
made in.
the video I was watching was speaking a lot about her return later on. She had a lot of psychological effects from that. And no doubt.
I bet.
Yeah, no shit, eh? Yeah, I mean, like, professional tennis at that level is very stressful as it is, without having to worry about random strangers running up behind you and stabbing you
in the back.
Because they are fans of your rival, and don't want you to win.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. So, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it wasn't Wimbledon. It was at a German tournament in Hamburg. The Citizen Cup. The bolt and the arrow that hit Renna. Harnan is the one that fires the arrow, and Gorderin is the one that fires the crossbow. But Matt doesn't say, shoot her, like in Jurassic Park. He is actually like, what is described in the book is he feels something inside him flicker and die before he mutters, shoot. Like he is so dejected about it. And that's when he adds her name to the list of 3 and everything. So I know, Vil, you were just adding some flavor for narrative reasons, but I think the point there is that he actually was not very enthusiastic about killing
no, he wasn't
at all because he's a good old
sad
Two Rivers boy.
Mm-hmm. And exactly. I just had to bring some Jurassic Park in because I feel underrepresented.
Some levity. Yes, indeed. Everyone seems to think that the third woman he blames himself for is Thailand. There's no other obvious choice. We were wondering whether Ramanda is a yellow Arja Aes Sedai. She is a respected yellow sitter and at times has been the head of the yellow Arja. So yes, very much a yellow. Nobody seems to know for sure why Ramanda sent 2 yellows to Kyrian for something to do with Nynaeve, but most think it has to do with the healing of the Still Sisters by Dharma Flynn, and Nynaeve being the only other person known to have done this. I think that's what you said, Joe. Then there was sort of confusion about, wait, when does Swan and Leanne get healed and Logain? Swan and Leanne get healed immediately after Logain. It all happens in 2 chapters, all in Saladar. Logain in Lord of Chaos chapter 28 and Swan and Leanne in the next chapter. Because as soon as Nynaeve figures out how to do it, she's like, oh, Swan and Leanne, I'll try it with you. And then they only come back to a fraction of their previous strength and for reasons that they don't yet understand. Speaking of healed stilling, Sashel in Kyrian, who we know, has been stilled and healed by Dharma back to her full strength. Is sort of kind of running the show because she's overpowering Samitsu because she's higher in the 1 power. I quite, flippantly said she is another one that was compelled by Varen and has sworn fealty to Rand. I can't find any evidence anywhere that she's been compelled. So not all the sisters in Kyrian were actually compelled, but she did swear fealty to Rand. And later, she's a Red Arja sister, by the way, and she's sworn fealty to Rand without compulsion. And later in the series actually writes a letter to the highest of the Red Arja apologizing profusely for what she felt she had to do at the time. So she did that willingly, which is pretty significant. A powerful Red Arja sister that was sent to capture Rand by Elida. She was one of that embassy, stilled at Dumai's Wells, healed again, swore fealty to Rand out of her own volition, which is
I could see why you thought that she must have been compelled.
Yeah,
out of everyone. Yeah.
Egwene's horse is named Daishar, meaning glory, and interestingly, Rand's horse is named Tai Daishar, meaning Lord of Glory. So Rand's horse is the Lord of Egwene's horse.
No,
Tai Daishar is
the Lord of all horses is Shadowfax, I believe.
Shadowfax. This is the white one.
Yeah. No, Tai Daishar is just the Lord of Glory, and Egwene's horse's name
Lord of
is
one
Glory.
Horse. Okay, not all horses. Gotcha.
And Tai Daishar, which is this horse that Rand uses now for the rest of the series, is it used to be Karuna's horse. Remember the sister of the king of one of the Borderlands, the green sister that was sort of striding through the battle at Dumai's Wells. Bera, the farm wife, Aes Sedai, like her buddy, the two of them always travel together. Rand just took Tai Daishar off her. It's like, this is my horse now.
I'm the ruler of the world. Goodbye. Thank you very much.
Yes. Yoink. The Emansfield girl who covered for Nicola is Loreen Ayelen. The name you couldn't remember, Joe. Kyron Stang was killed 15 days after Anaya. So Halima, who had been killing Aes Sedai in the Saladar camp, those were 15 days apart, which is longer than I thought. I thought it was only like 3 or 4 days, but it was 15 days. I was correct. Leanne had turned half or most of the South Harbour chain into Quaindiar, so only small vessels can get in and out. Egwene did the full chain, but they captured Leanne, who they thought was just a wilder because she had lost the ageless look.
Yeah.
So they didn't recognize Leanne, but she got most of the chain done. So effectively their plan worked, apart from the whole, capturing their supreme leader and all that.
Yeah. Little snag.
A little snag. We spoke about the fallout or the lack thereof after the cleansing of Saidin and completely forgot that in the process an entire culture committed suicide.
Yeah. Moving on.
Like, we were sort of saying, like, Saidin, the cleansing of Saidin happens and then, you know, like, life just carries on and no one's really even talking about it or anything, except that everybody on Tremel King died and killed themselves. And some of them couldn't actually get their hands or afford the strongest poison and had to take weaker poison that took longer to kill them. So they actually told the story to some of the other Mir that arrived. It was a fucking rough go.
And you found death cap mushrooms and had the 24-hour to 48-hour long slow burn.
But what an exit it was. The Bookville was published in 2003, not in the 90s. Crossroads of Twilight. So you were saying nothing exciting was happening in the 90s, not like in the 2000s, but the book was published in the 2000s.
It all feels the same to me.
I bet.
It's a big blur of past, young man running around.
Anything pre-2020 is ages ago. You know,
it's all black and white in my memory. We also said that we've known Gaul since book 1, but we only meet Gaul in the Dragon Reborn in book 3. We asked, how does Shaidar Haran travel? And nobody can say specifically. And so my conclusion is that it is like a fade through shadows, and not with the true power and ripping a hole in the pattern like Moiraine does. Every time that's mentioned, it's either Ishamael or Moiraine that's doing it. Shaidar Haran is always just arriving, and everything seems to go dark when he arrives, which could either be an effect of his arrival, or it could be facilitating his arrival. Do you remember when Grandel was meeting with, or, you know, Sindane and Mogedion came to summon Grandel, and then everything went dark? Shaidar Haran had arrived, and that's why.
Well, the answer to the question then is, how does he travel? And it's in style.
Like a pimp. This is interesting. So normal fades have to find a shadow to travel through it, but Shaidar Haran can summon shadows to travel through them. Is that what we're saying?
Seems like it. He does have a limitation, though. Apparently his power weakens the further he moves from Shire Ghul. So he can't go too far and just throw his weight around, because he becomes more and more vulnerable and less capable.
Vulnerable how? Explain, Moritz. Details.
I think I don't know. I'd be guessing it, but from what I recall, he feels weak. Like, I think we get from his point of view, like a weakening feeling when he is further away from Shadow Logoth. From Shire Ghul.
Some dark place.
That's just something that I have filed away from something. Who knows?
That you invented yourself 20 years ago and filed it away amongst true facts. Yes.
Well, I mean, looking at Shaidar Haran now, I've read that fact, that the further he moves from Shire Ghul, the weaker he is. How that manifests in the text, can't remember.
Right.
But it does ring a bell. When we were listing out the Forsaken that had used compulsion, I left Samael out, but I'm pretty sure that messenger that arrives to Rand, and then when Rand says no, he's not going to work with Samael, and the guy just bleeds out like on the spot and dies on the spot. Yes. That guy was compelled as well. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was Samael. We spoke about Vil. I think you mentioned that Matt notices, you know, Tom always reading this letter from Moiraine, but Matt doesn't know that the letter is from Moiraine. Moiraine gave the letter to Tom herself. So Matt doesn't know who the letter is from or why it is.
Matt
and then
does mention that it's a letter from that. I almost feel I could very well be mistaken, but I almost feel like he knows it's from her. I don't know why.
I'll go double check, but when Tom eventually shows Matt the letter, he says it's from Moiraine, and then Matt reads the letter, and it's when they decide to go rescue her from the Finns. From Sindhol, I should say. Okay, what else? Oh, I had some confusion. Obviously, I've said many times, I read Crossroads of Twilight back in December, so my confusion around how that last Matt and Tuon chapter ends, like, was Matt thinking of leaving Tuon, but they're actually still traveling because Tuon gave the letter to Val and Luca saying that the circus is under, or that the menagerie is under her protection and stuff. I was like, oh wait, but weren't they preparing to leave? There was a bit of talk of that. So when Egiernan tells them about why Renna stabbed her and ran, Matt asks Julian to leave most of the gold for Luca, like you said, Vil, and then to meet him in a nearby forest so they can make their escape. And then Julian asks if they should leave Tuon and Selucia in Durador, the town with the salt merchants and stuff, to stop the Seanchan from searching for her. But after a moment of consideration, Matt says no, they'll take them with them. So they're going to take Tuon and Selucia. So they did for a second think like, maybe we should just leave them behind. But that's all moot because they end up staying with the show. But Matt had made the decision to keep Tuon with him, and she seemed to approve of it because she gives an almost imperceptible nod when he says, no, we'll stick together. Then, Vil, you were also wondering about Olva, like riding off after Rena and then never hearing about her. Olva didn't actually ride off after her. After Egyanan got stabbed, Rena ran into the masses of the show. And Olva and Lopen and Nerim went looking for her in the show. And when Harnan arrives on horseback with a bow, he was like, Rena's taken a horse. She's ridden off. Vannon has ridden off with her. Let's go get her.
That makes sense.
So Olva was just in the show. He wasn't on the road after Rena. Then lastly, Jody, you said Swan is at DEFCON 2, maybe?
I don't know how that works.
So, I'm about to explain it.
Okay.
DEFCON stands for Defense Readiness Condition and is a system used by the US military to indicate the level of readiness for a potential nuclear attack. It ranges from DEFCON 5, the lowest alert, to DEFCON 1, the highest alert. And they go like this. So DEFCON 5 is normal peacetime readiness, no immediate threat. DEFCON 4, increased military intelligence, preparations for deployment. DEFCON 3, selected forces are prepared for deployment, increased readiness. DEFCON 2, full alert, war imminent, maximum readiness. I think that's suitable for Swan. War is imminent. DEFCON 1, imminent nuclear war, maximum alert and readiness.
Nice. So she's 2 or 3. I think yellow alert is better because I know my Star Trek alert's better. It's like normal, then yellow, then red. It's very simple. She's on yellow alert.
During the Cuba Missile Crisis, would they have been a DEFCON 2 or DEFCON 1, that being America?
Willie, I'm going to award you with a bonus callback to go figure that out for yourself.
I would imagine 1.
Right.
That shit was serious. I mean, right off the coast
it was like
of
a
Florida.
phone call away, right?
Yeah, I'd say they were at 1.
Yeah. All right, that's enough rambling from me. Let's listen to some rambling from our listeners. First up, Gary writes in with the following. Belated congratulations on reaching 100 episodes. It's an amazing achievement and you guys should be very proud. Thank you for all the hard work. It is greatly appreciated. Pleasure, Gary. I'm done with the back catalogue and I'm all caught up now. I have some questions, but I can only remember a couple at the moment. Number 1. Does Perrin shoulder any blame for what became of Aram? Perrin is presented as thoughtful almost to a fault. It's the reason you guys dubbed him Thinky Boy. Yet when a traumatized Aram first approached the weapons and asked if he could have one, Perrin allowed it without a second thought. I've been through the story 3 times now, and this bothered me every time. Perrin spent time with the Tuatha An, learned their ways and beliefs, but didn't think it was worth offering any kind of opposition. On the contrary, he argued rather strongly that he had a right to defend himself. Aram no doubt had psychopathic tendencies, and Perrin has no fault there, but I can't help thinking that Perrin had helped put him on that path. What do you guys think?
I think if he believed that that's a good idea. Wear the leaf. In a perfect world, I'd do that too, but it's not a perfect world, and I have the right to defend myself, and so does any tinker who chooses. He didn't force him. Aram chose, and he supported him in his decision because that's what he believes.
Yes.
My point. My
Agreed.
2 cents.
I can't recall any time that Perrin was sort of like, oh, I should never have done this to Aram, or like felt any guilt about it. I mean, he notices how crazy and how bloodthirsty Aram is and how he often wants to resort to violence first, and he sort of has to calm him down.
Yeah.
But I don't think he ever verbalizes or even thinks about regretting it.
Also, 4 more books to come after this. There might be some times where he thinks back on this. Now, especially after Aram dies, that he was like, oh shit, maybe. I shouldn't have,
True.
let it.
True.
We'll give it some time.
Also, at the time, when Aram took up the sword, was when they're preparing to defend themselves against the Trollocs, right? So like Perrin is already like defensive mode. Every sword counts. Like, if anyone's going to pick up a weapon to fight the Trollocs, so be it, because we need every single sword we can get. So there were extenuating circumstances. Gary then asks, when Verin told the boys in the Great Hunt that Moiraine had sent her, it was a clear and obvious lie that no doubt would eventually make it back to Moiraine. It's so blatant and unnecessary that she must have done so on purpose. Was she telegraphing to Moiraine that she was Black Arja and not to be trusted in all things because she was bound by her dark oaths? Also, did those oaths prevent her from telling Matt straight up that there was a plan by the Shadow to use the gateway in Camelin? Looking forward to the next show and new spring. Keep up the great work. Gary in sunny South Florida.
Fuck, I don't know, Gary. Who knows?
I don't know that it would, quote unquote, no doubt make it back to Moiraine. And to send that message to Moiraine directly to not trust her because she's Black Archer, I don't know how that helps anyone. Verin is sort of like already acting, as we can see it, or the way we're interpreting, to sort of quote unquote help Rand. You know, she's like willing to kill Cadswain and that sort of stuff to sort of, you know, ensure that Rand continues unimpeded. But I don't think that she was intentionally telegraphing to Moiraine that she is Black Archer.
Yeah, there's no way that she could have known that would have arrived at Moiraine. Like, she would have been there at that point, at that time, with that information. It seems a far stretch.
In the Great Hunt, in the beginning, when Rand comes and meets with Siuan and Moiraine, Verin is also in Siuan's study. Remember, like, Verin sort of like quickly puzzled out, like, oh, Rand is the Dragon Reborn, isn't he? And they're like, oh shit, I guess so. So like, Verin, to give Moiraine any additional reason to mistrust Verin, you know, would be a bad idea. She's already in the inner circle here. Like, you know, like there's no reason to give up her own thing. I do think her dark oaths prevent her from being able to just lay out the plans and say like, oh, yeah, no, we're going to be using the Camelin Waygate to get a bunch of Trollocs in there and take it down. You know, like that's
100%
possible.
Which is why later she poisons herself to get around that, you know? Yeah.
Yes.
Oathrod versus Oathrod, like the same way Moiraine couldn't do certain things, the same way Verin can't do certain things during that period of time.
Because the wording of that oath is like, until the hour of my death, I shall keep close the secrets of the Black Archer or whatever. So then she poisons herself with a poison that takes an hour, and then she spills the beans.
She lawyers herself.
Everything fucked because some flowery language, because they wanted to sound cool.
Well, I read about this as well, because remember, Shamal is the one that established the Black Archer, so he probably wrote those oaths, and he was a nut job, like, you know, like all theatrics, like Burning Eyes, and like, you know, like all the show in Teleron,
breaking rats' backs and stuff, and setting them on fire.
Exactly. Yeah. So it actually fits.
Yeah.
Right. Quick feedback. Let's get callbacks out the way. The Cuban Missile Crisis. DEFCON 3 with the strategic air defense going to DEFCON 2 only.
Never to 1?
Well, I just looked up the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I mean, that was the biggest I would imagine.
Yeah.
But hell, we don't know everything, so there might be some new things to come out.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for the mail, Gary. We get an email then from Jen with the following subject line: agreeing with a dark friend.
Oh, yay, that's me.
Skip.
It is. Hi, Morrison guys. I just had to send a message because I actually found myself agreeing with Willie. The last time I wrote in, it was to share modern-day pigeons doing crime. This time it is to say, yes, I agree with Willie that Crossroads of Twilight and the Slog is likely a deliberate literary device to cause us distress, tension, frustration, and worse, just like the characters feel. I think the book is such a short time frame and all these different things are in play, and RJ grinds things to a halt and focuses on minutiae and struggle. I like a lot of the politics personally, but when I get to this part of the series, I find I can't tolerate waiting for what happens next. I have started to read the plot lines by character rather than as the book orders them. It helps me cope. Thanks for the podcast. How would one do that? Do you read the entire series as Rand, and then the entire series as Egwene, and then the entire series as Elaine and Perrin and Matt? Like,
well,
great.
Think about it like this. There's the cuts that people stick on YouTube of like terrible Star Wars movies.
Yes.
That's just edits. Like, okay, this gives me what I need. So I assume someone has gone out there and just copied and pasted and glued the plot lines together, and then you got them all in that order.
I think, Joe, your surprise at my interpretation has led me to what I think your interpretation is that within a book, they just read a character through the book and then the next character through the book. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. Because like, who would you read first? Rand? You got the whole story. You don't need that.
It's all such a short span of time that you can do it. You know, you're not crossing vast amount of time and going back. It's like just, a couple of weeks, whatever.
Even within, I mean, maybe only because this is what I looked at most recently for Crossroads of Twilight, the chapters are pretty much grouped together. Like you read a bit about Perrin in the beginning and a bit at the end. But the Elaine chapters are all in a row. The Matt chapters, I think there's a couple in the beginning and then the one at the end. So like they're not super choppy and changing. You're not going Rand, Matt, Perrin, Egwene, like jumping. They do come in sort of blocks. So ordering them in that way shouldn't be too hard. Cool. Let us know how you do it, Jen. Then Lee Ray is still right in the thick of it with her latest contribution. She's burning through the podcast episodes, obviously, so there's a couple contributions here. So Lee says, in Lord of Chaos, do we ever figure out what the deal is with the white stones Bashir places at the base of the hillside before the Saldaean horse display? This is from the book. With his vision enhanced, it had not been difficult to see the 2 white stones lying near the foot of the slope, right where Bashir had placed them personally last night, 4 paces apart. With luck, no one had seen him. With luck, no one would ask too many questions about this morning.
Signal.
Signal?
Someone looking for a signal.
Is he sending a coded
you got
message?
sentries at a distance. I'm throwing speculation out there. 2 white stones. White is very visible from a distance. Perhaps you've got sentry men in various areas, and he's sending a signal. 2 white stones for good.
Remember, this is before they're doing the big sort of like all the horsemen like standing on the saddles and like lying off on the side and touching the ground. They're doing a big like demonstration of how good they are at riding. First they ride in a long column and then they split up and they all interweave and stuff. So like, what signal necessarily? I've got an answer here, by the way. I'm being
is your answer about triangulation, perhaps? Like he knows how far away those stones are and how far they are apart, and then he can judge from where he's standing. He can control the movements and judge where exactly everyone is at the same time. And he doesn't want everyone to know. Stones? Yes, because he knows some of X and Y. He just doesn't.
That excerpt I read is from Rand's point of view, right? So Rand is like standing there. Rand can see the stones that Bashir put there, and that hopefully no one sees them or asks about them.
Maybe he just doesn't want people to know. Maybe he just wants people to think he can just do all this stuff and control all his troops because he's so amazing, not because he's secretly measuring it out with white stones. Fuck, do it again.
Here's the. We never actually cleared this up, and in reading this, I was like, oh wow, it's like finding the last puzzle piece and then just slotting it in. This is how this feels. 4 paces, some people are saying, is the widest gateway that Rand can weave. Ooh. And the horsemen are actually practicing how to quickly deploy through a gateway. So the stones signify...
If you already had an answer, why did you let me blather on like this? Talking cock.
I told you I had an answer. But it's also just a theory. But I think it's a really cool one, because it is with those horsemen that he invades Ilion.
Yeah, what if Rand has got a Kalandor in his hand? Is it also just 4 paces wide? Can't he make a bigger gateway?
I don't think Rand just pulls out Kalandor and starts using it willy-nilly. Like, I think you also can't bank on always having it. Also, at that time, it's in tier, right? So, like, it's not even with it.
And what if it's Grady that makes the gateway, and then the paces is different? I'm poking holes in a valid, sort of very good theory.
I also don't know that it is necessarily the width of a gateway that Rand can channel or create. So, but I do like the idea of them practicing to deploy through a gateway. So maybe it's like on average, this is what the Ashaman linked or not linked can do. Blah blah blah.
I like that one best. I'm going with that one.
I think it works well. Anyway. Lee continues. Morel has had Lan's bond since Moiraine died, and he hasn't made it to Morel yet. So it's all still Lord of Chaos, right? Yeah. Lan wouldn't stand aside if he came into battle, and he wouldn't take time to heal up from the wounds he sustained traveling and fighting. We know this because of the state he's in when he arrives there. So Lee's thinking that some of Morel's ill temper towards Nynaeve might be caused by her feeling all of what Lan's been going through. Because at the time, Morel is being quite harsh on Nynaeve. I think we interpreted it maybe because there's a known relationship between Lan and Nynaeve, or maybe we questioned why Morel was being so hard on her. So maybe some of that is bleeding through from Lan. My other thought was that Morel is an experienced Aes Sedai who has had a number of warders before and should really not be letting her warders' emotions affect how she interacts with the world. They can also mask the bond and stuff, but if they are also expecting Lan to be arriving sometime soon, which Morel would be able to sense, she might not want to turn off or mask the bond at all, because she would like to know when this crazed, killing, lonely king is going to arrive on her doorstep and demand to know what's happening with this bond.
I think everyone should remember, someone quoted this in it, it's not my own, but Lan is not a warder, he is the warder. Like, yeah. He's what other warders want to be when they grow up. Is that guy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so, yeah. You got to keep all your senses on maximum for that guy.
Yes.
Where is he? What is he doing? When's he coming?
Yes.
I'm beginning to think of it more as in Lan is also a warder. Is more than a warder.
Interesting.
And he's just taken that side role. I do that as well.
You personally?
Because, I mean, we know his past. We know, and we're going to be dealing with it now. I mean, what an apt time to bring Lan up and his schooling, for lack of a better word.
Yes.
But water isn't what defines him.
No.
He's Shannara from Valkyrie, but raised in the Borderlands.
A theme we are about to dive into over the next
so
couple episodes of this podcast, right? Like it's what it's all about.
Yeah, but that makes it even more impressive, Willie, is that this is his side gig, and he's still the warder. Like,
he's still the best one.
Everyone else is leagues behind him. No, shame. That's a bit of a diss to the rest of the warders. But yeah, they're not at his level.
No. Lee then asks, when do Elaine and her mother meet again? I have a short answer, and it's a happy one. They reunited in Towers of Midnight.
Who and who? Sorry, I wasn't quite listening.
Elaine and Morgaze.
Okay.
Or otherwise known as, what's her name now?
Magden.
Magden.
Mm-hmm. Lee then continues with, it occurred to me while reading this section and listening to your podcast that Egwene is the only Amyrlin who actually can be called Watcher of the Seals. She is the only one who has come into contact with them since the breaking. Another point for Egwene, I guess. Yes. And I think it becomes a point of contention between her and Rand when Rand says, I'm going to break them now. And she's no, I am the Watcher of the Seals. I say no to this plan.
This is all sounding all very familiar from what happened 3,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Very much so.
Lee also says, I so remember being astonished at the knowledge that they intended to raise Egwene to the Amyrlin seat the first time I read the books, and hugging myself with glee, wondering where the books were going to go from there. I've said it 100 times on the show, but Egwene's arc is my favorite in the whole series. I was also so chuffed when they raised her, and when she dominates the tower as a novice, chef's kiss. Lee also says Sheriam being Black RJ came as such a shock to me because of how skillfully RJ concealed her allegiance. True, Sheriam is a motherly, matronly figure, right? Like she is actually the one that sort of helps Egwene into the Amyrlin position as part of the Saladar Six. Even when she was Mistress of Novices in the tower, she was a compassionate sort of like soul. You can almost believe that it was just a bad decision she made to join the Black Archer, right? Like she doesn't present as an actual dark friend.
Well, you guys look at it from the light into the shadow, but when you look from the shadow towards the light, you see a different picture. Mm-hmm, she is the perfect person to have in the tower as Black Archer, with a tremendous amount of influence in assisting emotionally distressed novices and accepted, where they would go and cry and not just go for penance, but everything. She is basically people and culture manager of the tower. So,
spoken like a true person that's been sent to a people and culture manager.
Yes, true. That.
Are you sad? You know, it'll really help if you join the dark. It'll make everything better.
Exactly. I mean, when do you pounce? You pounce when someone's guard is down and they're vulnerable,
they're at their lowest,
and they're weak. So. I don't think that she made a mistake that got her into the dark. I think she was purposefully deployed to try and seek out that position, being already in the team.
Right.
Makes sense. Okay. Most HR departments are dark friends.
Yeah. I wasn't going to say that because I'm scared my people and culture manager listens to this and then wants to know about my heart. But yes, I think that we shouldn't always look at any of the dark or the Black Archer sisters as being trapped in their situation, but that they sought out their positions where they are because of what they bring.
Fair enough.
Their allegiance being somewhere else.
Also, as jy dom is, moet jy sukkel. The final note from Lee here is just thanks for all you guys do. I love going to sleep with your podcast in my ears. I have listened to them almost all day and night since I found you.
Beauty.
Carefully. Keep up the great work. I'm so thrilled to be able to discuss my thoughts and feelings about Wheel of Time with someone. Glad to help Lee. That is why we are here. Then, old friend of the podcast, Jonna Pierce, has found some renewed vigor and sent in another email. And she says, "Good day, Mo. Couple things from the last episode. You mentioned wondering why Perrin didn't just go back to the Two Rivers to get supplies. My thoughts on that would be that he doesn't want to put so much strain on their limited resources. The huge number of people he has with him are far greater than what he could be supported by that small community without seriously depleting them. Plus, the Ashaman he has with him are already wiped out with all the jumping around they're trying to do to find the Shido in the first place." Now, my response to that is they created gateways to So Harbor, so that's only a couple of days ride away, and they still use gateways to do it, so I'm not going to be that lenient on Grady and Neild. I know they've got it within them to do it. Perrin's also got like 2,000 people with him, okay, which is a lot. But he's lord of not just Eamon's Field, but the whole Two Rivers, right? So that's Tarrant Ferry and Devon Ride and all the farmland in between. And from what we can see from Tel'aran'rhiod, like Eamon's Field has become quite a prosperous little bustling metropolis, you know, and it's got all sorts of trades, bigger buildings going up. Like it is bursting at the seams, and things seem to be going quite well there. So maybe Perrin doesn't know that, and therefore it's not his first thought. And, you know, Perrin being the thinky, touchy-feely boy that he is, maybe is like, okay, I don't want to put any more strain on my hometown, but I still think he's missed a trick there.
I think he just didn't even think about it. He's so concerned with Aiel and catching her, and just he's so single-minded that he's not thinking clearly.
He doesn't want to go too far.
It's too much emotional distress that he's under. I mean, this whole passage is characterized by him not making the best decisions. So I mean, I've gone a little bit off the rails with his decision making and looking at it out of a very different perspective. But still, in that breath, is I think we are reminded that he's not thinking clearly. It takes Fairlane to often put him into position, like act lordly, have a freaking shower. So someone who forgets to bath and eat is not going to think about, I can get resources back there using that.
Yeah, he's new to all of this. He doesn't have Aiel directing him around anymore either.
But look, along those same lines, Berylane has stores of her own in Moiraine.
Yeah.
She could say, hey, let's go there and do that. He's been in the Stone of Tyr. He knows where those storerooms are. He could just open a gateway straight inside. No one's going to bother him.
Yeah, the point is he can go anywhere.
He could go anywhere. So, yeah, it's not just Eamon's Field. It's just he's not thinking straight.
What's the rules again about gateways? Having been there, having seen...
You got to know the land you're on.
Yes.
And you just need to imagine where you want to go.
And by virtue of creating a gateway to somewhere, the caster of that gateway automatically learns the position that they're in. So you can gateway as often as you want, anywhere you want. Anyway, Jonna continues, and she says, I always thought that Perrin's plight was the worst part of any slog that might or might not exist, simply because every time you get back to his perspective, it's so overwhelmingly with his whole, ooh, I miss my wife, I can't live without my wife. Like, okay, bro, we get it, but damn, I might have mentioned it before. If I skip anything on rereads, it's usually his parts. Interesting.
Yes, what a tender soul you are.
John just laying it down. Shut up, you whiny bitch.
You're complaining about loving his wife all the time. What a pussy.
I remember it being far worse.
Yeah.
The whole chase through the snow and sort of like Perrin's thoughts and his pining after his wife. I remember it being much worse than it is. So that's interesting that Jonna has picked on him here. But it's also, I think, maybe purposeful. Like RJ had to put Perrin on the shelf for a bit because later he becomes almost like OP with the whole wolf dream impact that he has. The dream spike, fighting Forsaken, and the Black Archer, I'm much more acutely aware of just how important the role of Tel'aran'rhiod and the wolf dream in the main story, and how important Perrin's mastery of it will be in the final battle. So a bit of cooling off for Perrin is probably warranted in the grand scheme of things. Doesn't make it any easier to read, though.
It is true. He does become very badass.
Dominates.
There's like you say, there's a lot going on here, and other people need to shine for a bit. So let's keep him busy in the snow, chasing after his wife for a bit.
Yeah,
but yeah, could have been done better.
or more interestingly.
Yeah.
Jonna says, I do love Jody's comparison with Star Wars. Moiraine being Obi-Wan is so perfect. Lots of laughy faces. Then you are so right to call out Egwene for not recognize or reconsidering the whole plan, or calling it off, or switching it up to a new day or something, and for her not telling the others how stupid they are for thinking the Seanchan can't attack without warning. Like, holy crikeys, I know she was distracted, but with her dreams being her main concern, she should have brought up their flying creatures and how they can tow a bunch of soldiers on tow Raken. Thanks, Willie, for making that connection. And then on top of that, there were so many signs that the plan had been betrayed, but she still walked right into the net. Ugh, I guess I attribute it to them still being so young, so that they are going to make mistakes. I'm assuming the two of you agree with all
everything that you said is correct.
Hey, this is what I said. This is what I vehemently argued as where is Gareth Bryn?
Let contrarian Mo step in here and give you some reasons why that might not be the case. Do you think Egwene knows what a Raken is?
Well, she was captured and had a collar around her neck
by the Forerunners in Falme.
Yeah, but of course they would talk. She would hear.
She was
just
training.
wait till
you assume that she's been with just Suldam in the kennels and training. They are sheltered.
Oh, she's out in the fields.
I think
training.
It's a big stretch.
I think that they're a vital part of the army. They would have worked with other regiments, or would have been guarded by regiments, or transported. No, escorted.
I mean, it was only a short time that she was in Falme.
Was it a short time, Moritz? I mean, our perception of time in these books is not very accurate. So it could have been.
That's true.
A few weeks. It could have been a month, 2 months. I don't know.
So remember, she was captured, and then Rand took the long way portal. That took 100 days.
Yeah, but also remember they weren't traveling together, so the timelines are a bit fuzzy there. But I take your point. It could be. Let's say she was there for 3 months. Raken aren't mentioned in the story until the Fires of Heaven, right? So. None of the Seanchan we've read about have mentioned them on the pages or anything. So I'm saying there's a good chance she's never seen or heard of a Raken. Certainly never seen one.
There is a chance. Well, I wouldn't go as far as a good chance, but yeah. Possibility.
Well, they're not mentioned. The Grolm and the Torm and all those things are mentioned in Falme. No mention of Raken.
Yeah,
when Min is watching the battle. Min's watching the battle play out and watching Birgitte run across the bay and fire an arrow at a ship. Everyone is looking up. Rand and fucking Ishamael are in the sky, right?
Yeah.
I'm not buying that no one is looking up. There were no Raken there. There were no Raken at Falme. So I will give Egwene a pass for not thinking that what she thought was a bat, or first thought was a Drakkar, and then said, oh no, it must be a bat. Not recognizing
Has she
at a
ever
distance
seen a
at night
Drakkar?
a Raken.
So they were attacked by them leaving the two rivers.
Yes.
They were, you're right.
Exactly. She's seen that. Yeah, because as
so
well.
That's her frame of reference.
Her first thought isn't, oh, that's a Raken. That could be a Raken. She knows that the tower is going to be attacked by Seanchan. She sees a bat in the sky, and her mind doesn't go to Raken, it goes to Drakkar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see that.
Also, about the plan, again, Nicola knows nothing about the plan, right? Hardly anybody. In fact, I think Swan is light on details of the plan. Right, especially certainly, Egwene's own involvement in it right at the bitter end. That said, Nicola is known for eavesdropping and sticking her nose into business that is not hers. So
right.
I think that is how Nicola actually does know. She doesn't know anything about what the plan is, but might know that it is something to do with the harbors, and that's how.
Yeah.
That's how it comes out.
Look, I Googled that. I looked it up when that happened to figure out what the connection was, like how they found out about the plan when we were summarizing those chapters. And it is stated in the wikis and stuff that it's Nicola who told them. But not that she knew the specifics, but she knew there was a plan. No. How she knew there was a plan, I don't know. We'll have to
By being a nosy little ferret.
Ferret.
Ferreting out half facts. And the other thing I thought that might have tipped them off is Kyron Stang was supposed to be the one that created the Quaindiar, and was killed. Like, should that have tipped Egwene off to, like, something to do with the plan is up? But Anaya was killed before Chiron and did not have anything to do with making Quaindiar or the plan or anything like
also
that.
15 days before.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. So if anything, that starts a murdering of Aes Sedai chain long before the plan. Yeah. So if anything, the fact that it is longer ago, but 15 days is also not a very long time. So the two are obviously, they were both killed with Saidin. The murders are obviously linked. Nassau has been tasked with finding out why they were killed. The obvious link that Nassau should come to at some point is the fact that Chiron and Anaya were both good friends with Cabriana Macandes that was killed, and who Delana has said... or Halima, has said was good friends with Cabriana.
I don't know. I'm still going to be on the wagon saying that if your getaway driver goes sick the day before the heist, there's a problem.
Yes.
I think if Anaya was not murdered and only Chiron was murdered, I would think that is more of a tip-off.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I agree. He's a dog friend, Maurice. He's just trying to lead you down a dark path.
And Jono finishes up with, speaking of young, it's totally crazy to think about how young Moiraine and Siuan really are compared to the likes of Varen or Cadswain. Also, I love how many times Moiraine thinks something must be true because an Aes Sedai said it. Varen is already Black Archer by this time, so everything she says should be considered sus. Plus, the reality is that as long as the Aes Sedai believes whatever it is to be true, they can say it, even if it's really not true. It's like when they say there is no Black Archer, but that's only what they believe. I love New Spring so much because you get to be in Lan and Moiraine's perspectives, which you don't get much in the main series. True. Learning about Lan and Bukama and their whole history is most excellent. Learning about Moiraine and Siuan going in lockstep from their first day in the tower and their journey together is superb. I look forward to your discussions on it. Anywho, that's all I've got for now. Keep on keeping on. Thanks for all your efforts.
Shot.
Thanks, Jono. Pleasure.
Welcome back.
Keep those emails coming. Yes, John has been very active lately. It's great. Then, I think, yes. Lastly, last listener contribution. Great guess, Vil, but it's from Mr. Dependable Ian Yellen, who sends in this brief missive. He goes, so on to New Spring, and may it put a new spring in our steps. I believe the salt in the one town was real salt. Says Durador. Salt can be used with fireworks to make a yellow color or to keep the gunpowder dry. All right. Surprise to nobody, they sent me on a little salt journey.
Oh no, here we go.
Here we go.
It's little.
Strap in.
It's little. Stick with me. Apparently sodium salts can color fireworks yellow, but that is again a sodium nitrate, not sodium chloride, which is table salt, as we've already established in our previous chemistry lesson. Durador gets its salt from salt wells in the hills. That's mentioned in the text. The water from which is pumped into the fountain, as Willie mentioned last time. So salt wells typically yield rock salt, which is halite, a form of sodium chloride. All fits. While less common in salt wells, other types of salts, like those with potassium chloride, have also been found in historical deposits. In salt lake deposits, potassium nitrate can be extracted from the liquid phase brines, which are often found in the intercrystalline pores of halite and salt cake. So, the nitrate that we need, saltpeter, to make gunpowder, can be extracted from the brine that is typically found in salt wells and used to make table salt as well.
All I'm hearing is that I got 10 podcast points for that.
What I'm saying is that it is feasible for the town of Durador to have access to saltpeter to make actual gunpowder. Because the brine that they use to produce their own salt has also been used in the past to produce saltpeter. Right.
Righto.
And that concludes today's salt lesson. Thanks, Ian.
Join us next week for Salt.
That's why
102.
You are worth your
Salt
weight
3.
in salt, Mo.
Yes, that's why I get paid a salary.
Yes. He's a salt of the earth kind of man. Yes. I'm out.
All
Let's
right.
not rub salt in the wounds for too long and carry on.
No. Okay, look. At the risk of salting the earth, let's go to previously on Blood and Ashes. Except not necessary or relevant, because we're not going to recap Crossroads of Twilight to lead into New Spring, so you guys are
save that
off
5
the
minutes.
hook. We are going to do that 5-minute recap of Crossroads of Twilight when we start Knife of Dreams. Okay, but until
So it's
then,
not gone, it's just delayed.
it is, yes.
All right. Damn it.
So that means we can jump straight into New Spring. Chapter 1 is called The Hook. Jody, what do we have on the hook?
Oh, was I supposed to do chapter 1? Everybody with worried faces.
Oh, shit, yeah, I'm ready. Did do it. That's a great chapter. I remember everything.
All right, cool. The Hook. I did it so long ago, like yesterday, that I've already forgotten that I did it. Mm-hmm. All right. We join a young Lan just before dawn, trudging through the snow in the killing fields outside Tar Valon, freezing his huevos off as he checks on his sentries. It's been 2 years now, and near the end of the Aiel War, although he doesn't know that yet, but through the descriptions of this chapter, we do. Mm-hmm. And good thing he's checking on those sentries, as the first one we encounter is asleep on his feet, leaning against a tree. He doesn't give the man shit, though. Just reminds him of his duty, and that an Aiel would have woken him with a slit throat, and moves on to the next sentry. Sentry? He has to wake 3 more on his rounds. People are super tired. There's been a lot of... So tired. 2 years of fighting. It's snowing. It's crap. Moving off from the third that he's had to waken, Jaime, an old soldier who was asleep on his feet with his eyes open, which is like a level 10 soldier feat. He hears a noise and knows it's not an Aiel, but his countryman, Bakuma. Good old Bakuma. Bakuma is the last of Lan's protectors and teachers. When Malkia died, 20 men were selected to carry an infant Lan off to safety and raise him and train him. They are all gone now, except for Bakuma. They continue together to talk and wake more sentries, as is now the thing to do. But before they get very far, they hear the sound of horse hooves in the snow. They know it's not an Aiel, because it's a horse, and expect a messenger, and they are correct. It is a full Terran with an oil-scented pointy beard giving him away. And a root Terran at that. Doesn't dismount, doesn't say his name, nothing. Led by a sentry to find Lan. Lord Emaris is following around 500 or 600 Aiel, and he is planning a hammer and anvil attack. And he needs Lan and his men to be the anvil, so he can be the hammer, because the hammer gets all the glory. Lan doesn't know this Lord Emaris, but look, the coalition is made up of over 200,000 men from 10 different nations, so it's hard to keep track of who's who. They agree, of course he agrees, Lan will never turn down the chance to do some smashing and anviling. And what did I write? They agree and will be at the agreed upon rendezvous point at dawn, this ridge in this certain area. So Lan sends Bakuma to rouse the troops. We ride. Before leaving, the rude Terran tells Lan to ride hard. His Lord Emaris wouldn't want to get there and find no anvil. Lan has to calm Bakuma down a little before he cuts this douche down, and has to assume the void himself to avoid doing the same. So by the time Lan gets back to the center of his camp of around 300 men, mostly Saldeans, Kandori, and Domani, with a few Melkiri here and there, Bakuma has most of them ready to ride. They run a tight ship here. Bakuma brings him his horse, not Mandob, but at this stage in his life, Cat Dancer. I would say Mandob, huge upgrade on Cat Dancer. But you know, when you're young, you do stupid things. By the time they're all mounted and riding out, the sky is turning that grey before dawn. They have a league or so to ride, so they spare the horses and eventually arrive at the ridge around sunrise. Lan has been keeping an eye out for Aiel the whole time, but hasn't seen one yet. But does see the White Tower, 3 leagues to the west, glistening at the top as the morning sun starts breaching the horizon. Lan keeps his men well back on the ridge for the moment, lined up, waiting, watching the tree line for the Aiel to emerge. The soldiers stick the points of their lances into the snow and prefer their bows instead. You don't want to get into a melee fight with the Aiel if you can avoid it, but you can only avoid it for so long, and it will get to that nasty business sooner rather than later. Lan has no doubt that when the Aiel do arrive, they're going to see them, and they'll attack, because 600 Aiel versus 300-ish coalition forces would look like great odds, so he's prepared for a battle. So Lan is running through battle scenarios in his head until the sun starts to rise behind them. And then the Aiel come out of the trees. Lan takes out his good-looking glass, a Carinian-made one, to inspect them. He's got some good shit. And they keep coming. Trumpets start to sound in the west as well, and then another and more trumpets start sounding, and then more and more Aiel start pouring out of the tree line. Somebody miscounted horribly. Lan eventually stops counting, guesstimating at around 1,500 Aiel, and he hears Bakuma mutter next to him, "Embrace death," sounding like cold steel, and the borderlanders with him echo his words. Lan looks left and right and is proud to see his men stand firm in the face of certain death. Even the Damani. I like how that's mentioned. By the time the last of the Aiel clear the trees, there are easily 2,000 of them, and no sign of Imares yet. More and more trumpets are sounding now, so we get all of these. It's not the trumpets of the Aiel. It's trumpets coming from the killing fields around the White Tower. But even the Aiel are looking back at these trumpets the whole time. Land draws his power-wrought sword, but the Aiel do not attack. They've clearly seen them on the ridge, the sun rising behind them, silhouetting all these horsemen. And do not turn and do not charge. In fact, the men in front order the entire company, the Aiel men, order their entire company to come to a complete stop, 500 paces away, just out of bowshot. Then, blocking the sunlight with their spear hands, they look straight at them up on the ridge and begin talking amongst themselves. Lan seeing all of this through his looking glasses. This is very weird behavior. The Aiel all raise their spears as one and bring them down as one in what seems like a salute. And as one, all shout a single word, An Alien, loud enough to be heard over the cacophony of trumpets coming from the west. Lan exchanges amazed glances with Bakuma. Madness, they think. They understand the old tongue and what was shouted. One man alone. But why would they shout that? Hey? Then the Aiel move. It's like a whole bunch of you up there. The Aiel then move, not towards them, but northward, parallel to the ridge, and then eventually east, back in the direction of the Dragon Wall, perhaps. A Kandori named Kanyendrin even comments that maybe they are going home? Earning himself some scoffs and ridicule from the rest of the men. The only guy that had it right. Bakuma asks if they should follow, but Lan prefers to find this Lord Imaris first and have a chat about hammers and anvils, and perhaps counting, and see what all these trumpets are about. End of chapter.
Yeah.
Very
what
nice.
You got?
A little few, as we don't have a lot to break down, but 2 years of fighting and tired soldiers. You missed the one thing there. It's 2 years of fighting Aiel.
Yes.
That is a whole different level of fighting.
We know it's the Aiel War.
Is this the first time we get the name to the Void, the Oneness?
The Cody.
Cody.
Yeah.
Because Rand has always been taught by Tam the Flame and the Void.
The Flame and the Void, yeah.
And Lan was surprised that he knew it when he started teaching them weapons.
As was Lanfear. When Rand tells her about it, she's like, because I think she calls it the Oneness. Or does Lan call it the Oneness?
Well, Lan calls
it the Oneness.
I think every culture,
has their own name for it, I suppose.
All know it.
But this is the first time that I read Cody in our recent sort of rereads. But other than that, I've got no other smatterings of interest.
Okay. I have some smatterings.
No doubt.
Surprise.
Spread away.
Smatter away.
Have we ever seen a Malkiri chapter icon before? That helmet?
No.
I don't think so.
I didn't even know there was
a brand new one.
There was. There was also a start with a wind, but not the traditional wind. It was just like a gust of wind. I was like, RJ giving a nod to his own intro for the mainline story. It like starts with the first sentence is about a wind. Lan thinks to himself, it was best to avoid becoming involved with Aes Sedai more than absolutely necessary. Bad news, Lan.
Yeah.
They use the word drub here, Joe. Like if someone found out that a soldier was sleeping on the job, he would be drubbed by his fellow soldiers.
On the ears? No. That's ears are reserved for boxing.
Yes, exclusively.
I don't know if you're going to mention this, but it did remind me about sleeping soldiers. That the old man that he wakes, that's eyes are like open, sleeping on his feet. He doesn't threaten him with anything except like, hey, because the old man's denying it. Like, I wasn't sleeping. And then he's like, dude, I know. And listen, if you don't admit it, I'll tell your friends. And he was like, oh, shit. Like, and that's
that's the worst thing that's going to happen.
That's the worst
possible
outcome. Don't tell my mates.
Yeah.
My old.
Wasn't he also a Saldaean?
Yes, he was a Saldaean.
I mean, that's a lot of pride.
Yeah,
that gets taken out
you
there.
Can't
but it's
threaten him with
interesting to
anything
see
worse than my peers knowing
he's pretty much only got borderlanders that survived. That is still in his regiment.
He's got a bunch of Damani with him as well.
There was, but I mean the Damani. I suppose
that's south of Saldaea, right?
South of Saldaea. It's still northerners, I'd say. I'd call them.
And I mean, these are guys that potentially at one point fought under Rodel Eteralde. Like the Damani have a respectable army.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're no borderlanders, though. I mean,
no, certainly no Shinarans or Saldaeans or yeah. The Arafellan and Kandori, I don't have much of an affinity to because we don't really know a lot of those characters, but certainly the Shinarans, Malkiri.
Yeah, that the Kandoris, being borderlanders, would have bells in their hair. Like you're hunting Trollocs all day long. Like, why would you give your position away?
Maybe they're just like so. Like their egos
Come and
are
get
so
me.
big that like yeah, here I am, come at me, that sort of thing.
Maybe.
As Lan walked on, he found himself chuckling. He seldom laughed. Yeah, super seldom. Like, is he a little less grizzled here? Because I mean, Lan is in his 20s.
Yeah,
he's like 26. He's about 46 in the eye of the world. And this is 20 years before. So he's only 26. So I keep picturing like, the Lan that I've been picturing for decades now. But this is not him. This is a young man Lan.
You sure it's 26? Because according to the holy text, it says 20 years ago. Oh, no, it was 20 men that took him. Sorry. It was 20 men that
of which Bukama was the one that carried Lan on his back. Like he was the one that had Lan on his back, and he's the last survivor. Only 5 of the 20 made it to Shinar, and of those 5, only Bukama is still alive. The Aiel fought, quote, through Tyr, then Andor, to end up at Tar Valon.
Yeah.
Now, Cairhien, which is where King Laman obviously would have been, is north of Tyr. So the Aiel came across the Dragon Wall into Cairhien, then went south to Tyr, then up north all the way to Andor, and then sort of northeast to get to Tar Valon, which is a wild route to take.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think Laman was like running via that route? Were they chasing him?
Remember, they came over in force.
But Vil with a single-minded goal. All they wanted to do was kill Laman.
Did they know where he was?
Eventually, they killed him.
Cairhien. Like, I would head straight. He was the king of Cairhien.
So maybe they split up and they're like, cool, some go south, some go north, some go east. Take the 5th, take the heads, find the answer.
Maybe
they split up to find. I don't think it was to like plunder and just murder everyone. They specifically wanted Laman.
And there's only a few passes through the Dragon Wall.
Slayer's Dagger?
Still, no. Andor. What are they doing in Andor?
Well, if you're coming up through Tyr, you go through Andor.
Vil, you raised a good point, right? You were saying like maybe they split up to find him, and maybe Lan had just fought in all those different places because the Aiel were spread everywhere, and it wasn't one force of Aiel that they were following around. So that tracks.
Because I mean, out of all the, I want to say not septs, is it the
clans?
Not clans. It's their societies. Only certain bunch of societies. Or there was only a group. It wasn't all of the Aiel united that crossed the Dragon Wall.
It was. They came en masse, and they like it wasn't like a hit squad. They came in force.
But they needed 200,000 men in a coalition
more than
army.
200,000 more.
Yeah, but the coalition army was 200,000.
Yeah.
So yeah, not just for a clan or two. We'll have to investigate that a little bit further. But
because I do remember that the first time they went, it was mentioned in the Rudian section of the story that when they came over the Dragon Wall the last time, they didn't come with the numbers that will be following Rand now.
Yeah, I remember that too.
It was in lesser numbers.
And Rand had like over 100,000 spears.
So maybe it was like 20,000 Aiel. Just ram it.
That was enough.
fucking shit up everywhere. It's like just the stone dogs went for a run.
I'll go see if I can find how many came over.
That sounds familiar, Willie. Like I remember something along those lines as well.
Yes, I do as well. I mean, we do remember some stuff. 1 podcast point for Willie.
Well, to be determined.
Yeah. Like vague thought with no evidence. He doesn't earn any points.
Half point. There's a soldier mentioned here, Rakim, the Saldaean with a busted throat box because he took an Aiel arrow to the throat or something. He's still in the main story, and we'll read about him in Towers of Midnight. So, 20 years later, in the main story, Saldaean, he was the guy that, we felt very lucky because he'd already cheated death. He's continued to cheat death until, 20 years later, which is cool. White cloaks in the Grand Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Interesting.
Why? Maybe because they thought they could kill some Aes Sedai?
Maybe, I don't know.
They could come in force right to the White Tower and nobody would say anything.
There's a breakdown of how many troops from each country were in the Grand Alliance on the fandom wiki, and the White Cloaks were like a minor force, but maybe they thought Pedro Denial was leading the White Cloaks at the time, so he would have thought of some kind of strategic advantage in doing it.
Oh yeah,
he wouldn't.
Well, probably some alliance at that point in time with Laman.
Or maybe he didn't want any threat to Altara or Amadisia.
Yeah, it could be just to build alliances. Like, look, hey, we helped during the war.
He would have had a reason.
Yeah.
Lots of emphasis on the prophecy of the dragon up front and mentions of the fact that nobody wanted the prophecy to come true because it truly is terrible and not at all hopeful. Like the prophecy is like when the Dragon Reborn comes, this is a bad time for everybody. I also had the note, Joe, about the spyglass made in Kyrian, which is where Kin Tovir was also from, the guy that made the spyglass
perhaps even glass. Made by him already.
Or his dad, like maybe it's like his a family
because
trade
he was old.
Or something.
He was
he was bald. He was bald and stocky. I don't remember that he was old. His description doesn't say that he's old, just that he's bald, but it could be bald from age, right? Like it could be him.
Don't they make the clocks as well? Like who's the master clockmakers, and is it not the Kyrenian as well?
That's a free callback for you, Joe.
God damn it! All right.
You asked the question, Joe. You wear it.
I know. I stepped in this cow turd. I just cleaned my own boot.
My final note here was just like, what were those trumpets? Because it starts off saying this day began strangely, and he had the feeling there would be more oddities before it was done. Yeah, big oddity, But like everyone's mentioning these trumpets that are weird and out of the ordinary. Like Lan doesn't recognize them, and when we read about the Accepted later in the Aes Sedai in the tower, they also don't seem to know what these trumpets signify. So, who's blowing them?
The Kyrenian. We learned that Laman was killed, and it's not the Aiel. It's the coalition. I think it's the Kyrenian because Laman was killed, and the Aiel are retreating, and they're blowing the trumpets of victory. Like, yay, we defeated them. They're retreating.
Maybe that's it. Yeah,
and that's why the Aiel are looking back like, hey man, we're not retreating. We're just done
our job.
We're just done with you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's everything I had. Let's move along to chapter 2 called A Wish Fulfilled. Vil, I wish you could fulfill our need for a summary.
I sure can. Point of view, Moiraine. Yay, Moraine's back. You all remember her? Well,
not really.
She's a little bit on the lighter side and accepted and still very short, but very plucky. We'll give her that. Her and Swan is standing on a duty, you want to call it?
In attendance.
Yeah.
In attendance duty for Tana and Gitara Moroso, who is the Amberlin and the keeper at
Tamra.
that. Tamra, sorry.
Tarna Fear is someone else.
Yeah, but they are both in the same chapter and mentioned within lines of each other. God damn you, RJ.
Yep. It is cold, and I do like that we are still cold in the story. We're not jumping into a spring flowers.
Don't have to reacclimate.
Yes, we don't have to change our situation. The place is stinking of smoke, but not just the normal fire smoke, like towns burning down smoke. And that has been kind of now ongoing for quite a while as the wars progress to the river towns. What do we call them? Bridge towns. That's right up on the shores of the island of Tarvalon. Moiraine is somewhat worried about the war, and, well, we do know she's the niece of the man that started said war, and she does have a kind of a vested interest in the outcome of this, all thanks to Laman and his chopping down of the Chora tree, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. To make a throne that no one could copy.
Yep. Now there's... hoping that news comes through, but news is sparse at this moment. Moiraine becomes aware that there's not much that she can do, irrespective of whatever the outcome is. I mean, she is kind of stuck in the tower, even if she wanted to. Tana and Gitara doesn't look tired. They don't look cold. Did I say it again? I actually wrote it.
Even if you write it, it looks the same. It doesn't matter.
You have dyslexia, Willie, and these names are extremely similar.
There we go.
Firmly off the hook.
Yes. Point being, we get reminded about all the Aes Sedai quibs of being able to avoid the feeling of cold or the heat and perspiration, but then describe that it's not a thing of the power, but a thing of mind control, and a lot of rehashing of Aes Sedai and abilities and all the rest.
The old typical RJ starting a new book. Remind you of everything you've already read, just in case. Yeah.
I mean, I did like it. I did like it because it...
Who even are you?
No.
What have you done with Vinny?
No, I did like this. I'll be very honest. But anyway, let's move on because I've got a lot of notes, like 17 pages for this. Now it's not Tarna, it's Tamra. I had a powerful rapport with rulers around the world. She was well loved, even down to the White Cloaks would accept her. And again, just sort of the position of power, which Dameron's seat is, which we're being reaffirmed in. She was known for being both fair and just, but not being the same thing. She could separate those two things, and Moiraine had admired her greatly. Gitara, on the other hand, older, rumored to be 300 years old already, from the Blue Archer, where Tamra is from the Yellow, and it's said that she might even still favor the Blue in some of her decision-making. Take that as you will.
Not relevant for much longer.
No, not really. Reminded about the courtesy of not asking women their age, even Aes Sedai or not. It's just a reminder there when the discussion of Gitara's age popped up. Now, Gitara has got the foretelling with capital F, and it's been a great topic of discussion in the tower, and specifically between the novices and the accepted, because she had several foretellings to the events that has been going on with this war. And right now, back in the moment where they're standing in attendance, wiggling toes, very cold, Gitara has been writing a letter for 4 hours. Very thoughtful in the writing of that letter, to the point where the ink on a pen would dry out, and then she would have to clean it off with alcohol, and all the descriptions is there of all of that. Now, in 3,000 years, no army has ever breached the walls of Tarvalon. So the sisters feel, I suppose, pretty confident that they're okay with their tower guard, because it turns out that other than the Amyrlin and the Keeper, the rest of the sisters, which at this stage is quite a many, not as many as it used to be, but they're all out and about. They are doing healing, supporting armies, not getting involved in the battle, because whether you want to believe it or not, the Aiel are not dark friends. And there's that sort of, I think, Jody, you maybe didn't bring it up.
I glossed over it. No, I didn't.
You glanced over it, but that there's a belief that this is driven by the dark, and there was a bit of sort of a pattern, false pattern recognition in every 1,000 years, something like this coming up. And it's Bakuma specifically who says all these things against the dark. But again, the Aes Sedai does not seem to be too worried about it. That's actually just a moot point, but they're all in their white dresses and related to being in mourning, and Moiraine's like would never be able to be part of the White Aja because she'd feel that wearing white you'd be constantly in mourning. And I'm like, okay, isn't that black? But in this world, it's white.
Yeah.
Now, Moiraine and Siuan's friendship is an unlikely one, and with all these contrasts, but they do have similarities in the sense that both of them are now orphaned. Mother's dying young, father's dying later, and both born with the spark in them, but a massive class difference. Moiraine educated, wealth, nobility, all the rest. We know Siuan, fisher, woman, poor, Terran. That's like being poor and worse. And then shipped off the minute that she was found to be able to channel. They both joined the novice list on the same day. They both also passed their accepted test the same day. And they were en route to go and probably do their Aes Sedai testing at the same time, which would also put them in line for the fastest jumping record, currently held by none other than Elida de Avaranere of nonsense titles.
Aroyan.
Yes, that one. So she also climbed the ranks quickly. Then we hear distant trumpets and timestamp. So I like that we have a timestamp between the chapters now, and no one knows what this is about. Obviously, the Amyrlin is concerned about this and orders are sent. Siuan, T, Moiraine, check for news, which is not a big feat because she just had to walk outside the room. And then we find and get introduced to Ellen, who's now been a novice for 7 years and older than Moiraine. And again, to explain, I think, just character, the levels of novice to accepted to Aes Sedai. And I kind of consumed this book as if, imagine a new reader would pick it up. So it's repetition for us, but imagine just someone saying, cool, I'm going to start with a prequel, which is very likely that, okay, cool, this makes sense, it's intriguing, there's a bit of world building going on there. And she was reading naughty stories. What was it?
50 Shades
Hearts
of
Aflame.
Yes.
And she was sitting in front of the flaming fire and her heart was being warmed. Moiraine, being younger, still tells her this is not appropriate reading. The book falls, blah, blah, blah. And deception, introduction to Aes Sedai needing to use their words well, and proud of herself and saying, oh, the librarian will be really unhappy that you dropped the book, change topic, and all the rest. But there is the reason she was sent out was for news, and there has been no news, so she returns to the study. Siuan has already made tea. Considering the haste that she was ordered to, she's like, I can cheat, and she uses the power to quickly boil water, makes a really sweet cup of honey tea for Gitara, because she's old and likes honey, and Tamra likes a milky tea. Anyway, Moiraine is tasked with taking the tea. There you go, that's the sweet honey one for Gitara, and as she walks up to her, there is a foretelling. and this comes into the title, A Wish Fulfilled, because all the talk of foretellings, it would be so exciting to be witness to a foretelling. Not really, because she had a foretelling and fell dead into Moiraine's arms. Do we want to do the whole foretelling? He's born, he screams, oh God, it's
we know
chaos and thunder and lightning.
Just recapping,
yeah, and we have a dead keeper, and poor Tamara is very shocked, and she, like now, Moiraine can see that she embraces Sidene and, Sidar. I got it wrong now. Sidar, and delves her, and it doesn't move to healing. And her being a yellow, it would have been possible, but not because she dead. And that leaves them both hands over the mouth and like really shocked. And then she turns to the two accepted and say, not a word of this ever. Lie if you must, lie to a sister if you must, but you will not utter a word of this to anyone.
Dun, dun, dun.
And anyway, quick orders. Ellen can come to fetch and sort for all of the rest, but you guys are now excused, and the foretelling is heard, and Moiraine wishes she never heard it. The end of that chapter.
Sure. So we've heard references to this event many, many times. We've spoken about it many times, and here we have it. Joe, anything to add?
No, except that Willie wrung out probably 40 liters of juice from this chapter, more than I expected any human could possibly do. I thought that this chapter was Moiraine and Siuan on duty. Gitara has the thing, and she drops dead, and they sworn to secrecy. The end. I mean, that's how I would have done it.
Well, I could have done it like that, but it wouldn't have been very entertaining, Jody. I had to be very entertaining. I had to just be me.
And now I need to sprinkle all of my little stuff over the top of that.
Your hundreds and thousands.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Let's turn this story into fairy bread. So, Moiraine grew up in the Sun Palace. So not only is she related to Laman, who was her uncle, but she actually grew up there. And it makes you think that, or it makes me think about the time that she spent in Cairhien before she killed Lanfear. Like, she would have known that palace intimately. You know, like it reframes her presence there. Like, to her, it would have felt like home because it literally was her home. So I wonder if there's any hints that we missed about like her familiarity with like the layout or the staff or anything like that. So if I ever, or when I one day reread, I'm going to see if I can notice Moraine's behavior in the palace. RJ doubles down again on the misconception from the Aes Sedai that it's prolonged use of the One Power that gives you the ageless look. It's just been a big topic of discussion in Crossroads of Twilight, right? That it's actually the Oath Rod that gives you the ageless look and not the use of the One Power. But they say it again here. What else? Oh, so Moiraine and Siuan replaced Tamale, Black Archer's sister, and Brandis. They were the two accepted there before them. So Tamale, we know, turns to the shadow, but we don't know if she is a Dark Friend yet at this point. But apparently she has always been a sadist. So she could well be a Dark Friend at this point. So the foretelling just missed a potential Dark Friend.
Yeah.
Right? Like, whoa, close call. Brandis, however, apparently was part of the circle that healed Matt from the ruby-hilted dagger. Oh. And she is active in the story later. She's like in Saladar at one point, and then later she participates in the Battle of Tel'aran'rhiod. So that battle around the White Tower, I think, in the World of Dreams. She's there. I had in big bold letters, Tamara and Gitara were the only Aes Sedai in the tower at that moment. And then when Gitara dies, it's only Tamara. There's only one Aes Sedai in the whole White Tower, which is crazy. Ellen Worrell, that little novice that was reading the steamy book, she was a novice for 15 years eventually, and 14 years as an accepted. And she is the one that Elaine references later when she puzzles out the slowing of aging versus the ageless look caused by the Oath Rod. So when Elaine thinks like, how old do you think this this person is. And Nynaeve thinks, oh, she must be like my age. She's an accepted, but she must be my age. She goes, no, actually, she has a twin sister that's like well into her 40s and came to visit her at the tower. I don't know if you guys remember this. This is all stuff from
I do remember that, yeah.
I do remember that, yes.
So it's specifically this sister who spent such a long time channeling but had never gotten to the Oath Rod, who looked super young but didn't have the ageless look. And that's how Elaine figures out using her powers of deduction. So this little novice sitting here reading is the one that's the key to that little piece of information. They mention another sister here, Merian Sedai, the current mistress of novices under Tamara. She will have some significance in this book. She is Black Arja, and we have actually referenced her before on this podcast, so I won't elaborate here because it's a cool thing that plays out here. But I remember exactly when I brought her up, and she plays a big role in this. And then, yeah, I just had like, wow, Moiraine blushing, like not in control of all of her emotions and stuff yet, like she was.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah. So just showing like their young nature. But yeah, that was everything from me. So we can move along again to now chapter 3 called Practice. Joe, please practice your best summarizing on us here and now.
It's not my best, but it's pretty good. It's up there.
Practice makes
we join
perfect.
Siuan and Moiraine, as the French would say, heading back to their rooms after leaving the Amberlin study. So they've just been told to do the fuck-off-ski. Exhausted and still in shock at what happened. It's been a long night, people dying, prophecies, Dragon Reborn. It's a lot for a little accepted to deal with. We get a very detailed description of the inside of the tower. The tapestry, the carpets, the floor tiles, how they change colors and styles as they move through the different parts of the tower. Moiraine sees how empty the tower is and interprets that as the White Tower failing. This is not in this specific moment, but over the entire chapter. I'm just summarizing it here. A slow decay of over 1,000 years, and now the Dragon Reborn is coming, which means that the last battle is coming, and it's when they are at their weakest. She's reacted like this is also thinking about how there's no Aes Sedai in the tower right now at this moment, but also like how big the tower is. And how it was built to accommodate 3,000 sisters, but there's like nowhere near that and all that stuff. So she's already begun thinking about this at this stage of her life. Siuan's more interested if she wants breakfast. That's what she's thinking about. Moiraine declines and prefers to go get a few hours of sleep because she has to teach her first class of novices early in the morning. 6 o'clock, I think. 6 a.m. she has a novice class because accepted are expected to teach some classes. Siuan's having none of that. Sleep when you're dead, she says. Sort of, I'm paraphrasing. Let's practice for their Aes Sedai test. They have both been told that they are close to being tested for the shawl, so they have been practicing the 100 weaves that are required. Anyway, 2 hours is not enough for sleeping, so they head to Moraine's rooms in the direction of. Along the way, they talk about their futures after being raised to the shawl. You know, like, so we're going to do the test, we're going to pass, and then what are we going to do? Moiraine sees Siuan's leadership skills. There's a lot of that during this chapter and the following chapters, just how like natural leading comes to Siuan. And she is certain that she'll be a sitter and eventually the Amberlin in 150 years. Within 100 years, you will be at the hall, and then another 50 more for sure, you'll be Amberlin. So she's got big dreams for her buddy, but Siuan wants adventure, which makes kind of sad because now we know what her dreams were as a child that she never gets to achieve. The second she gets the shawl, she's out of here. She wants to go see what lies beyond the Aryth Ocean. It was like, no, you don't. And what lies beyond the Sharan trade ports. Again, no, you don't. You don't want to see any of those things. Eventually, they can't ignore the Sreddit in the room anymore, and they have to talk about Gitara's foretelling. They were told not to speak to anyone about it, but figures that doesn't include them, since they already know about it, so they can talk amongst themselves. But they encounter a few tower servants in the hallways along the way, which give them suspicious looks. So this isn't the best place to talk about it. We'll keep it shush. As Siuan's room is now closer, they decide to head there to practice instead. Once inside, Siuan channels to light the fireplace, which reminds Moiraine of her aversion to the rules, because you're not supposed to be channeling all fun willy-nilly things. She does try to get the fire started, but she never bagged the coals sufficiently well, and now has to use the one power. Then she goes off while Siuan's doing all the preparation to remember all their pranks together. Something about Itch Oak in Elida's dress, and she doesn't say exactly whose dress, but we know the story. It was Elida's dress. And she was ahead of them in the tower in her progression and made their lives hell when she was accepted and as Aes Sedai before she left the tower for Camelin about a year ago. So they finally rid of her. There were other pranks that were fish-related as well, obviously, if Siuan's involved. I'm not going to go into them. They get down to practice. It's practice time. Siuan insisting Moiraine go first as she needs the practice, while Siuan will throw distractions at her to emulate the test conditions. So the test, to remind everybody, is 100 specific weaves in a specific order, while the Aes Sedai throw all kinds of crap at you to try and distract you and make you falter. And then that's it, man. You can't falter. So they both embrace the source, and Siuan throws up a ward against eavesdropping while she's at it. Weird. Not the usual. Why? Is Siuan trying to block out Moraine's screams? Is she planning some dastardly distractions? Nope. She just wants to talk about what happened with Gitara. Obviously. First question. Won't the Reds immediately try to gentle the Dragon Reborn? Would they be able to stop themselves? I mean, everybody knows he has to win the last battle first, right? Can we trust these Reds? No, you cannot. But before they can even get to the second question, the door bangs open to admit Morelle. A good old Morelle. She's here, also an accepted still at this stage, and sees them practicing, and she wants to join. She's super eager to torture Moiraine, rubbing her hands together in glee. She also has a question. Immediately walks in the room and just blurts out, how long do you think we have before the last battle? Siuan and Moiraine are like, what? What do you know? Why would you bring that up now? So they try to play it cool. Whatever do you mean, dear accepted sister? And she means the Aiel, and their inclusion in the prophecies, the Aiel war prophecies. You don't remember that? But Siuan and Moiraine did not play it cool enough. Don't have control. Again, an example of them not having control of their emotions. Moiraine less so than Siuan. And Morelle sees through them immediately and realizes they have a secret. It's out almost instantaneously. Siuan admits it freely that they have a secret, but says it's not their secret to tell. Moiraine is freaking out. She doesn't know what Siuan is playing at. Is she playing a game of houses? Some say that the Aes Sedai invented that game. What is Siuan up to? I wouldn't have said anything, but Siuan's playing it. She's playing it right. But no time for that. It's time to practice. Moiraine... Oh, sorry. I've just written initials because I was tired of writing all these Aes Sedai names. So there's 2 M's. Morelle relishes in her torture of Moiraine during the test. They get through a good hour and a half of practice before the door bangs open again to admit Tarna fear this time. Not Tamra. Tarna. She's still also an accepted at this time, but the same sour-faced bitch as always. Siuan immediately tells her to go away. It's just like, we're done. Please close the door. Don't let it hit your ass on the way out. And Moiraine tries to excuse herself. She takes this opportunity. She has to go teach a class. But that's why Tarna is here. All classes have been cancelled and the novices have the day off. All accepted are required to meet in the lecture hall for a chat with the Amyrlin. Apparently, Gitara is dead. Morelle is immediately, so that's the secret you were keeping from me. And Siuan says, yeah, I told you, it wasn't ours to tell. So, very good. Very Aes Sedai of them. Tarna remembers that Siuan and Moiraine had their shift with the Amyrlin last night. And she's like, hey, you guys were there. That's right, of course. What happened? So Moiraine gives her the abridged version. Obviously, not the whole truth and nothing but the not whole truth. And Tarna actually seems sad, like she had some sort of connections. Like Tarna never has any other expression on her face except sour. But in this case, it does seem sadness. So yeah, she doesn't tell her about the prophecy, of course, but she tells her, like, I was giving her some tea and she just dropped dead. What am I going to tell you? They have to run to the lecture to avoid being late, but they do in the end make it there before the Amyrlin arrives. All the other accepted are already there and they're gossiping about the announcement, what it could be about. Are they all getting tested together immediately? Dumbass, that's not going to happen, is one of the things. I've written down the wrong letter now. Siuan asks Zamail, our favorite brown Athanmir, if she knows what's going on. Does anybody know what the truth is, or is it only wind? And she's like, only wind. Zamail only deals in facts. Another accepted, Aisling Noon, a tinker, tells her it's a foretelling from Gitara. That's what we're going to find out about. They all know that she had the talent for foretelling. She's dead now. It's, there's big news coming, guys. Just wait for it. We find out there's a little, I didn't write it down here, but it does remind me that we're being explained about how rare Zamail is, being from the Athan Mir, and how they get brought to the tower every so rarely. All of them are brown. The ones that are already full sisters are brown. Zamail and the rest of them are going to be brown. It's just, I'm leaning more into my theory about why are they all browns. What's the conspiracy? Something is going down there. Because they were talking about Zamail and like how she failed. She took so long as a novice before being raised to accepted, and she would fuck up weaves constantly, and then all of a sudden get it perfectly, as if she had never had any problems with it at all. Like her clearly pretending she doesn't know how to channel, never having seen channeled, but having to play the role. And also that the Tinkers also rarely have any channelers, but when they do, the whole Tinker wagon caravan will turn around and immediately, it doesn't matter where they are, head straight for the tower to drop the girl off. And there's a line there, because all of this information is coming from Varen, the Brown. And if Varen says it's true, it must be. It's like, yeah, very, very subtle, RJ. Just a little thing there from RJ.
John, I was talking about.
Yeah. So before the speculation can get too out of hand, Tamra appears, gliding into the hall. Turns out it's not about Gitara. Officially speaking, that is. It's a Thanksgiving initiative by the tower, where they will give 100 gold crowns to every woman who gave birth to a child between the first day the soldiers arrived until the day the threat is ended, as a way of giving thanks for the continued safety of Tar Valon. The accepted will each get 4 tower guards and go out near the city to all the camps, refugee camps mostly, and take down names and details from all the women who qualify with their young infants. But of course, it's only Siuan and Moiraine that know the true reason behind this new initiative. But no one cares, as they get to go out of the tower without Aes Sedai's supervision. Oh, there's so much excitement and excited murmuring, and Tamra has to calm Alana down. No, you can't use the power to defend yourself. Leave that to the guards, please. There's so much chattering, but she hears Alana going, oh, just give me a chance. Just give me a chance to use the one power. I'm going to kill someone. Calm down. Calm down, Alana. All right, so Alana's there too. So we get a lot of name droppings here of Aes Sedai, future Aes Sedai that we already very familiar with.
Name droppings has a sinister tint to it.
Well, some of them are very sinister. So there will be many dangers out there. The White Cloaks will be just as happy to put an arrow in an acceptance back as the Aes Sedai. So watch your back. Tamra leaves, having given the information she wants, and as if by afterthought adds an, oh, by the way, also take down the mother's name, the infant's sex, when they were born, and exactly where, before gliding out. Just dropping in the most important information required as an afterthought. Very Aes Sedai of her. Moiraine and Siuan are both very excited as well. They are going to help find the Dragon Reborn. What an adventure they must have. It's the most they could dare to hope for as accepted. And that's the end of that chapter.
Chewy. Willem, what you got?
For me, so we find these smatterings of Black Arja now, because the names that have been brought up is a lot of them are now known, Black Arja. And it doesn't, my head starts going, there's more to this. Is it, the Black Arja has been working for thousands of years in that tower, putting consecutive people into certain positions. Mistress of Novices, one of them. 2, purposefully empty out the tower actively over time. That's why the kin is so strong. There's so many kinswomen. There's so few sisters because they've just been depleting the force before one day would let it be 1,000 years, but there might just be 10 sisters left by then.
Moiraine thinks here there are currently around 423 sisters in residence in the tower. So they're not present in the tower right now, but they're basically staying at the tower.
Yeah.
And that there could be perhaps twice as many scattered across the continent. So conservatively call that about 1,200 sisters. We know that by the eye of the world, there's only like 950, 980, less than 1,000 sisters. So even in the 20 years between here and later, when we join the eye of the world, it's already depleted by quite a bit as well. And remember, all that stuff about the vileness and all that stuff is playing out, is going to be playing out now. This is the time period in which it happens.
It for me is, I think there's a lot of Easter eggs hidden so well in just this chapter. Like, Jody, you're like, this is boring. This is laden with Easter eggs. I mean, dropping this book in between where we are right now it's for me pivotal. It's important why it is situated right where it is in in release date, I should say. But for me, this is a long-term plan, and we're going to learn. Like, there's so much more. But I mean, Moiraine says at some point, she goes about how many quarters there are for novices and accepted. And at one point, they used to double up the novices in the tower. Now it's like a ghost town. Anyway, that was my one thing I picked up there, that the Black Archer has been at work for a very long time. The ward against eavesdropping. It actually surprised me that it also blocks off noise from the outside coming in, which kind of like deafens you to the world. Or is it just the ward that Siuan knew?
Yeah.
Question mark. Don't know.
I mean, I don't know that it would be that surprising.
No, just because I mean, always like a ward against eavesdropping. No one can hear what we're saying in here. But then I just didn't ever think of it as being, okay, we bury it all from sound traveling in or out. Because
I'm sure there's
surprised
a weave that only works one way. Maybe like maybe saves. Because would they have taught her the eavesdropping weave to accept it?
No.
So maybe she's figured it out and she hasn't got it quite right yet. So which is why it just blocks out all sound in all directions.
Maybe it's more crude, yeah. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, but other than that, I think that's me. Siuan is a bit of a rogue. In 2 chapters
Siuan is Siuan.
now, she has broken the rules twice. Making tea with the power, and then, fuck it, I'll just make my fire with the power as well. I'm on a roll today. So she's a real bit of a rogue, and I think that is great. I love it.
Yeah. Okay. As per usual, I have a smattering of morsels that I've picked from this. There are 2 Aes Sedai mentioned here, Malin Argania and Lorel Tarsi, both named by Moiraine, who will play a significant part in this book. They are also tasked by Tamara to find the Dragon Reborn, so it's not just Siuan and Moiraine. There's a couple trusted Aes Sedai that are also sent to find the Dragon Reborn, but as we know from the Eye of the World, it's only Moiraine and Siuan that are the 2 living Aes Sedai that know about the birth of the Dragon Reborn. So let's just say that the Black Archer is very effective in what they do, and old Malin and Lorel do not have a bright future ahead of them.
Long future. Perhaps bright and short.
Yes, maybe.
Definitely not
like a shooting star.
Prolonged future.
No. Joe, you hinted at this, but Moiraine thinks, who knows what lies west of the Aryth Ocean? Strange lands with strange customs? Yes, very much so. Their strange customs are very, very strange, especially to you as a channeler. The prophecies say that the Dragon Reborn would bring a new breaking of the world, which Moiraine takes as very literal. So I also pulled up the Korathon cycle there, Joe, at one point, and there's a section here that says, the dragon shall be reborn, and there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth at his rebirth. In sackcloth and ashes shall he clothe the people, and he shall break the world again by his coming, tearing apart all ties that bind. So surely the breaking that they are referring to is more of a metaphorical, breaking of ties between nations, and also the Aiel and all that sort of stuff. Because I don't recall a physical breaking. I mean, there was a shit ton of balefire thrown around. That certainly happened. and other geological effects that were leveraged in the battle. I don't know if I want to give away too much to spoil it for Willie, but I don't know if you remember, Joe, like what they do at some point. Very cool stuff, but I don't remember them actually like talking about the world breaking. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. I just don't remember it happening that way.
It doesn't, because I remember what happens after the last battle and how the nations are divided, and everyone just makes new rules.
Yeah, basically. The countries exist. Like Perrin can still be Lord of the Two Rivers and all that stuff. Yeah. I've never noticed this in my mind's eye, but the courtyard at the bottom of the well, around which the floors of the accepted quarters are arrayed, is open to the air. Yeah. There's like talk of like greenery and snow at the bottom. And apparently there's 2 more of them. So like there's this huge, like, almost like circular colonnades with an open courtyard at the bottom. And like as punishment, sometimes novices have to like go shovel snow and stuff. Just never pictured it that way, which is cool to have now. Moiraine feels a slight tingle when Siuan embraces the source.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that isn't normal, only when people are really close, and then eventually it also sort of goes away. But I don't remember ever reading anything about this.
No.
Wonder if it's introduced here as like a late addition by RJ to like use somewhere. Like maybe someone is alerted. So maybe let's see in this book if Moiraine is alerted to someone,
Yeah, but they say it normally happens to channelers who spend a lot of time together and channel around each other a lot.
Is what they think, right? They also think that the Earth Rod causes the Aegis look and that sort of thing. What I'm latching onto here is the fact that it happens and not necessarily why they think it happens. What else did we have here? Siuan ties off the weave for eavesdropping, which seems like a pretty advanced skill. Is tying off a weave a skill, or have I been show pulled? Is that something that happens in the show and they make a big deal about? Don't know.
Possibly. I don't remember it being a weird thing.
Maybe I'm confusing it with inverting a weave, which is definitely high level channeling.
I kind of feel that the tying off a weave is sort of just a bit more advanced, like you learn when you're an accepted.
So a skilled channeler like someone should be able to do it fine. Sure. Then I've got here, rumors of the Reds not trying very hard to take male channelers alive. And then in big bold letters, the vileness.
It's exactly. Coming. The rumors are already spreading, yeah.
Yeah, but even Moiraine herself almost excuses the behavior, thinking it should be counted as murder, but given what those men would do unrestrained, she could almost see why it was not. Yeah. No bueno, Moiraine, but she's always been like pretty Machiavellian, like whatever it takes is what Moiraine will do.
I don't agree, but I can see where she's coming from.
Yeah. A number of sisters claimed that the various passages of the prophecy of the dragon refer to the Aiel. Moiraine, you have a massive blind spot. Remember, like she was just
exactly
not on board with that. And then my last note was about Zumail fumbling her weaves. But Joe, you've already covered that, so we can move right along then to chapter 4, called Leaving the Tower. Vil, can you please leave us with a summary of this chapter?
Yes, Moiraine, point of view, the tower location. To be more precise, Moiraine's in the room packing for an adventure, because they certainly got sold an adventure by leaving the tower all on their own, unsupervised. But really what they're doing is recording data. It's not exciting stuff at all. But Moiraine, being a very pragmatic and thinky person, she packs well. She first puts on stout, hideous boots that she dislikes, but we're going into the snow. Woolen stockings, all the rest. And I mean, we get down to what she's packing in her bag. We've got a dagger going onto her person, first time ever that she's put it back on ever since arriving. A pen knife, quills, the work. She's thinking, cool, I'm going to pack for purpose. I'm going to do this. Even an ointment for a sore butt has been packed. When she readies to leave the room, she can hear the Katerina Alrada. Is that right? That same one shouting for...
Catherine. Oh, yes.
Catherine. We've got unprepared people who don't look after their stuff, looking to borrow stuff, and it's freakiness. But in the flip side of the coin, we've got people who do not go prepared, who's already on the horses leaving. They're the ones that's freezing the whole day of the mission. Swan wants to know what kept her, but it's let's go, and they head out to the stables. Made a note here about we don't have scrubbing of pots in this book yet, but we've got shuffling of snow. So that's the choice labor in this age under this Mistress of the Novices.
This administration is different.
This administration favors shoveling snow, and I guess in summertime shoveling shit. I mean, if shoveling
maybe pot scrubbing is more of a summer activity.
I don't think it's to the exclusion of pot scrubbing.
Hey, I'm just putting it out there, but I think I'm going to have a problem with shoveling snow soon. At the stables, as I mentioned, some of the accepted are already mounted and on their way out. Some are busy getting mounted. Moiraine is pleased to see the stable groom bring her own mare, which she purchased for herself as a present to herself when she passed the novice test. We do hear that Swan was offered a horse and declined a horse. It makes sense why Swan does not want a horse. She's not a very horsey lady. This mare is called Arrow, and it is particularly low at the shoulders, which makes Moiraine look more proportionate on the horse and not like a child on a big gelding or something like that. It was very frowned upon because she's the only accepted that has her own horse in the stable. But, I mean, she's also King Laman's niece, so kind of tracks. They get given the provisions that they need for the day's activities, which is ink in a jar and some steel nib pens. And she's like, shoot, I didn't need to bring my pen knife, but I mean, well prepared, good girl. Bunch of food that she thought was too much. Other girls probably eat more. We'll get back to that. Moiraine checks everything, makes sure that the ink is sealed properly because you don't want to have a bunch of spoiled parchments. Very pragmatic. The guardsmen are ready and they're on their horses already. The groomsman puts a hand out for Moiraine. She refuses. She's deftly at getting onto her own mare. She does it like a professional rider would. Swan, on the other hand, is kind of that person that jumps onto the horse and almost falls off on the other end, causing a bit of ruckus, like men trying to laugh. She's not good. So just a lot of comparisons being drawn to that. I wrote there, Swan is shit on a horse. Probably good on a sailboat or fish boat. Yeah, I didn't say Swan shit on a horse. She is shit on a horse.
I know what you said. No,
we know.
All right, so they have a party of 10. The two of them, 4 guards each. That's 8 guards, and they are led by Banner Man. Stealer.
Is it
not this. Seller. I'm just going to go like that. Do it French.
So far off. Sure.
I know.
Is it T in Neville? It's a Stealer.
Stellar? Yes,
no, that would be double L. The T.
Yes, Stealer. Either way, he's an experienced bannerman. He doesn't have time for nonsense. He's got a FIFO attitude. Fit in or fuck off. And he gets them moving, to which Swan already pipes up, or was it Moiraine? I can't really recall that. Hold on, we want to go to that side. And he's like, settle down. You got to get out the city first, and we're going to follow the GPS route out the city, and buckle yourself in because this is an hour's ride.
They want to go to the furthest camps possible, like to the outskirts. But he's like, I've already been told where we're going. Just, I'm taking you there.
They want the furthest ones around Dragonmount, as close to as that. That's where they know that he was born. And he's like,
The thing is, they would probably have sent the guardsmen to do this job, but probably they can't write. So they're just a bunch of writer and recorders, but on a grand adventure. Siuan is so bad at riding a horse that comments by Stella, it almost makes Siuan fall off a horse again. Oh, it's great.
Suck.
Now, a lot of city description, a lot of market description, a lot of race description. Everyone is in there looking for safety. Why they're there, roasting nuts, making curries, whatever the rest. But it's a long ride. You don't run through the city. It's just not practical. You walk until you get to the gate, and then you get to go on your grand adventure. Just a note, as they go through, and as Moiraine in her head goes through all the different races and regions, Andorrans marked particularly as stubborn. Check. Got that there. All right. This is Ogier. We get introduced now again to Ogier, the Ogier buildings, and a master Ogier builder that's there, plans under arms. And Moiraine gives him the due courtesy and respectful nod. He stands as tall as she sits on her horse. They can basically look each other in the eye, kind of like Bigfoot.
Don't do it.
If you think about it, Mo, it is like Bigfoot.
Siuan is so obsessed with her disagreement with the Banner General or the Bannerman that she even misses the Ogier because she's puzzling something out in her head. Takes them about an hour to get out of the city. The guardsmen, no questions asked, let them pass. The city gates at the bridges that cross over it. So I think there's 6 of them, if I remember correctly. 6 carts wide. It's like a highway over out the gate and over this very power-wrought, power-made bridges that go over. Guardsmen have no problem. They know what's happening. Everyone knows what's happening. So they just get to go through. But as they get sort of on top of the rise, the bridge, and they can see now down the slope on the other end, there's some white cloaks down the bottom. And Bannerman says, halt. Moiraine wants to pep talk him into not letting these men dictate what happens, but he's not even listening to the noise there. They then move off the white cloaks, perhaps fearing that it's 2 sisters and 8 guardsmen. Might just be too much to handle. I don't know. But they go out and into the city or into the Foretown. What do we call that? Bridgetown.
Gates, Bridgetown. That's it, yeah.
Bridgetown. And keeps a very wary eye, but they have their adventure mission Excel spreadsheet that they need to go and fill out. So they move on. Now we move to the first camps. They eventually read the first camp, which is about 2 miles out of town, and is already someone recording names and dates and location is Serene. That's busy doing that. They then ride to the second, much larger camp to start recording. There's no one recording there, and unfortunately, this is a camp that's mostly Mirundians, probably from Lugard. Who do we know that's from there? Paden Fane?
Paden Fane, yeah.
Yeah, they're described as not being very nice people. They like to fight and get into ruckus and all kinds of things.
Confrontational people.
Yes, and then they politely, because everyone's heard of the free money now. Now, this free money rumors spread like wildfire, especially after 2 years of war. Table, stools, and braziers are brought. Let the writing begin. That's the end of that chapter.
You.
Yep.
Jody, what you got? Spice it up.
I just like Moiraine trying to take charge and goad the guards into attacking the White Cloaks. Like, you gotta show them who's in charge. They can't boss us around. He's just ignoring her. Like, no, we are gonna wait until they fuck off far away before we make another step.
Yeah,
like, you just shush, girl. I know what I'm doing. That's it.
Is that it?
No, that's all. That's all the spice I got for you.
Okay, I've got a little bit more spice here. We've got a couple names here as well, which we'll quickly touch on. I've got here, perhaps she was forbidden to use the power to defend herself, but the dagger will do nicely if need be. So that's what Moiraine thinks to herself. She does, in fact, stab someone in this book. A channeler, no less. Catherine, who we know is Black Arja, is shouting at Carlinia, who is later part of the original leaders at Saladar. She's one of the Saladar Six. She's also the one that when the Saladar Six are in Tel'aran'rhiod getting coached on the World of Dreams and the nightmare attacks and they're being dipped into Trolloc cookpots and stuff, her hair gets burnt like really short.
Yes.
That's Carlinia. Prequel, mentioned here among the accepted, is one of the sisters that just helped catch Egwene at the harbour. She's one of those sisters. Edicina here is one of the captured then freed Aes Sedai travelling with Mat and Teslin and Jolene. So like Teslin, Jolene and Edicina are the three Aes Sedai travelling together. She's also mentioned here. Desandre is part of the failed attack on the Black Tower under Tovene. She leads those sisters that are bonded to Asha'man. Remember they pushed Tovene away. And now, so Desandre is now sort of the leader of those 50, I guess, not 51 without Tovene. Koladara is currently the advisor to Pytar, king of Arafel, and is traveling with the Borderlander army. So we read about her in the prologue of Path of Daggers when they meet in the Black Hills. Atuan, Black Arja, caught and outed by Pavara and co in Knife of Dreams. So another Black Arja sisterville.
Next book.
Yes.
Reminding you of her year so that you can recognize the name in the next book.
Right. Exactly. Moiraine is also showing her young age here by showing interest in staring at a tower guard that she thought was handsome. So like while they're busy mounting in the courtyard and stuff, she's like, I would have liked to look at him a little bit longer. So lots of hints here at Moiraine still being much younger. Less jaded than she is by the time we get to the Eye of the World. Quick reference here to Swan saw patterns where no one else could. Yeah, like in weirdly aged sitters in both the tower and the rebel camp. Yes, this one is good at seeing patterns. Moiraine thinks to herself, Tarvalon was the largest city in the world. Is that just unreliable narrator? She thinks also, like at the end of the sentence, I think she thinks surely, something along those lines. But I never think of Tarvalon as like the biggest, the grandest.
Is just showing her ignorance and untraveled life.
Yeah,
Do you
between
think
Cairhien and Tarvalon, it's bigger. Yeah.
But surely, growing up as a noble, she would have been educated about all the cities and all the nobles and all that.
She wouldn't have seen them necessarily.
Yeah, but surely one of the things would be the biggest city in the world is, in today's lesson, we're going to learn about the 5 biggest cities in the world.
And we have just recently been talking about how much bigger Tarvalon is than what we've necessarily pictured it. Like it is quite large.
It takes them, like a good hour and a half or something just to get out of the city to the bridge. But the streets are kind of packed, so it's not merely the distance, but also the difficulty of getting through.
They give us actual length. The city from end to end is 10 miles, 10 leagues. I don't know, whatever that.
They do. They do give.
It's like as big as Manhattan Island or something, isn't it?
It's what I think maybe one of our listeners once wrote in to say.
Although I've never been there either, so that doesn't make any sense to me.
Same. Yeah. But a cool thing that we get from the books is like Robert Jordan can just say things like, this building resembles a flock of birds taking flight. Which, like, is impossible to... You're like, what? How does that even work? But I guess he can do that. And like, just it exemplifies like the fanciful nature of the Ogier architecture, which is pretty cool. As soon as I read, quote, none of her preparations seem to be useful, I thought, I bet one of them will be useful later. And, maybe even that dagger when she stabs that other channeler in the back. Maybe it is that very dagger. So, like, it seemed like Moiraine going, none of these things I've packed are going to be useful. It's just like a primer for like, nope, something she's going to prepare at some point is going to be useful. I also... I mean, yes, it does come in handy for Siuan, yeah. I also thought that maybe it could be some kind of foreshadowing of how Moiraine felt ultimately dealing with Rand. From when she met him, nothing has really gone according to any kind of plan that she had. It just felt like a familiar feeling, you know, like Moiraine feeling like, oh, nothing I've prepared is useful, is how I feel like she felt in the eye of the world and beyond, you know, like, what do I do with this guy? I had all these plans, but nothing is panning out that way. So like I have to, you know, constantly shift gears. Maybe I'm giving RJ too much credit, but maybe not. Serene, the accepted you mentioned, Vinny, is the beautiful Tarrabona. She is currently with Rand on the estate in Tyr, where he's convalescing. Like, she's one of the compelled sisters that begged to swear fealty to Rand after previously being captured at Dumas Wells and made Datsang. So Serene is still around. However, Elid, who is with her, does not return from her test for the shawl. There's an accepted here that we read about that goes for the test, and she doesn't come out of the Tarangril. For which they have a whole process, of which we will learn about later, but I will not elaborate on that here.
I've got something else.
Ooh, yes.
Before you continue, Katarine, Black Aja.
100%.
She's involved in the fight in the tower in Tel'aran'rhiod with Egwene, and Egwene kills her with an Aiel spear that she conjures up.
Is she the one that she thinks is Missana because Missana puts a mask, like a mask of mirrors on it to make her look like Missana?
Puts that shadowy thing over her to make her look like a Forsaken, and Egwene's like, stabby, stabby. You dead.
See you, Catherine. So, she's also the one that was in Dorlan with Tana Fear and Gawain and like snuck back into the tower and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, we read about it quite a bit.
She'll die soon.
Well, soon in our timeline, not in New Spring. Should we move along?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yep. I think we can go.
Let's do it. Our last chapter for this episode is chapter 5 called The Human Heart. Joe, can you find it in your human heart to give us a summary, please?
That is your first failing, to assume that my heart is human. Oh, that's funny. Very good, very good. Reality soon hits home hard. This adventure is starting to look a lot like work. It's data entry. The worst kind of work. Mm-hmm. It's cold. Those braziers aren't doing shit. These women are mean. All these noble women. They're so nasty. And there's so many of them. Lots and lots of people. So they're sitting there at their little tables. And they just won't stand in line. A bunch of savages. Just a huge mass of women from all backgrounds milling in front of them, pushing and shoving and shouting and elbowing each other out the way. Old guardsman Stellaire, as the French pronunciation Villy has put in my head, is shouting for order, but being completely ignored, because no one gives a shit what he thinks. They almost start getting physical, the guardsmen that is. They start moving towards the crowd like, cudgels out. Let's start beating some women up. With the crowd, when Siuan steps up on her stool and whips out the old loudspeaker weave. Always comes in handy. Mm-hmm. A little bit of air and fire, if I recall correctly. And tells them all to shut the fuck up. The one power being used, and Siuan's commanding choice of words and presence reminds these people who exactly they are dealing with, and everyone gets into 2 straight lines pronto. Again, Moiraine marveling at this woman going, look at her, she's just in charge. Mm-hmm. She takes charge in any situation. Groups of little girls start gathering near them, staring and whispering and giggling, and Moiraine hears the words Aes Sedai from them. So they are in awe at least. So now their message was, don't tell people that when from Tamra was, don't tell people you're Aes Sedai. That's not true. But if they don't say anything, you just go along with it. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people here start thinking that, oh shit, these are Aes Sedai, we're not just clerks or something. We better do what they say. The first baby that Moiraine sees reminds her that she doesn't know shit about babies. This one could be a week old or a month old. She has no fucking idea. So this is a noblewoman's baby, and she tells Moiraine that she will have the 100 gold crowns framed as an heirloom to the day that the White Tower honored them. Fucking rich people. During the note-taking, Moiraine sees another woman off to the side, not standing in line and moving off, not interested in the money. but they have to be thorough. And this lady's maid that she's dealing with, that's going to have all the coins framed, maid knows the woman and the child, so she gives Moiraine her details as well before carrying on with this noblewoman in front of her, who's none too happy that she's being passed over so quickly. But apparently, this woman, her husband was killed. She doesn't like anything about Aes Sedai. She wants nothing to do with the tower, so she doesn't want their blood money, in her opinion. But anyway, she's getting it, whether she likes it or not. Name is already in the spreadsheet. Moiraine overhears Siuan laying down the law with another noblewoman, and again wonders at her leadership skills again. Like, she's just, even this noblewoman, putting her in her place. She's like, no back chat, please. Just give me the details. I just want the facts. And the woman complies. The day wears on, and the routine becomes boring or annoying when dealing with the nobles. As it always is. I mean, nobles are nobles. What you gonna do? Until she is approached by a woman named Susa Wynn, clutching her obviously too old child. Moiraine has had a long day, and it's clear that this baby was not born very recently, and she's about to tell her off for trying to fool the tower when Siuan gently touches her arm without even looking up from her own notes. She just reaches over and touches her, and they have such a connection. They know what one and the other are thinking and what this all means. And Moiraine stops, takes a closer look at this woman, and sees that she's starving. She's not a skinny woman. She's a starving woman. Her eyes are sunken. She's got black rings. Like, she's in a bad, bad place. So she's like, fuck it. I'll take the info down. I'll write down all the info and leave it, all the follow-up for the Aes Sedai. They can make the final decisions. Turns out that this woman's husband is dead. He never even made it into the battle. As they arrived, he slipped in the snow and hit his head on a rock and died. The baby is sick as well. He's got a chesty cough. We all know that sound. That's not a nice sound. She has no family or friends in the camp to help her. Her life is shit. She's in a bad place. And if that first noblewoman is going to frame her fucking coins, this woman could really use them. It's not like the tower is broke. The tower's got plenty of gold. So she lets her through and takes down the notes, takes down her details, and then even slips her like a little silver penny of her own money out of her own purse is the word I'm looking for, to go and take the baby to go see a wisdom about that cough. Very kind of her, but the news that the Aes Sedai are now accepting obviously too old children spreads down the line quickly, and more women with much too older children start joining the line to, try their luck as well. A woman even joins the back of the line with a toddler who's walking, holding his mother's hand. And now Moraine's pissed. She sees this, we want to be kind, but they can't let people think the Aes Sedai are fools, because now they assume they're Aes Sedai, so they have to represent as Aes Sedai, and they cannot be taken advantage of. So the next woman in line is one of those chances. Her child is clearly as well too old, and she's looking for a handout to take her happy and healthy child to a wise woman, like, I wish I had some money to take my child to the wisdom. But Moiraine is not having any of it, and threatens, basically, to heal the baby instead of taking her to the wisdom, for free. I mean, the child probably won't survive, but we can give it a go, right? And stretch out her hand to do it. To fake, obviously not really. And the woman freaks out and she's like, no, it's cool. The baby's actually not as sick as I thought she was. It's fine, and runs off. This sends the women running away again, and the news again spreads down the line that no more bullshit will be tolerated, and all the chances start abandoning the queue. You can see women running off, and the woman with the child that's old enough to walk also leaves the line. She gets Siuan's approval from this. She's like, good. Don't take any guff from these swine. And it's all back to business. When lunchtime rolls around, they take a break to eat their bread and cheese, I believe it was, and some apricots in a waxed paper or an oiled paper, just to keep them fresh, to keep the moisture in, as you guys know. And some women bring them some tea, and another woman brings them 2 big jugs of spiced wine. She tells Moiraine that she saw what she did for Susa, and that was kind and well done. And he has some free booze as a reward. The woman isn't as deferring as the others, clearly treating her and Siuan as children. And it's obvious to Siuan that this woman knows what an Aes Sedai looks like, and they are not that. So she must have gone to the tower, probably an initiate that went to the tower as a child but didn't make the cut. So she's seen some stuff. She's got experience. But she's not going to spoil the illusion for anyone else. She'll keep her mouth shut about it. But someone enters the camp right now with no intention of keeping their secret. It's 2 Aes Sedai come riding in with 1 warder behind them. As they get closer, they realize one of those is Elida and a white called Malin. Don't get attached to her either. The girls quickly tell them, like, oh, I see you coming. We have permission. We were sent here. But the Aes Sedai are like, yeah, we know already. We're here to check on you, make sure you've got everything you need. Because you won't believe how unbelievably unprepared some of these accepted were. Oh, you mean all those ones that were running ahead, that were the first ones out of the gate, that didn't have their proper stockings on, or writing tools? Yes, those guys. So yeah, it was good that they prepared as long as they did. And they are here to help. They are here to check on them, just make sure they got everything they need. Well, Malin is. Elida's just here to fuck with everyone, as is her wont. The topic of testing them for the shawl comes up again, and both Aes Sedai are sure it'll happen soon, and that they won't have any trouble passing. She expects both of them to pass with ease, and if they don't, then Elida will have some words with them. Malin is like, you're taking too much interest in these girls, you're treating them like pets, and Moraine's like, pets? More like a goat staked out for a predator. For some reason, it takes over Moraine's brain that she should ask why there are so many babies during a war. It doesn't seem to make much logical sense. It's a really inopportune time to be having babies. This is out of character for a Kyrenian, and she blushes both for even having asked in the first place and for talking about sex in public, guys. Malin thinks this is very funny. She's like, bloody prudish Kyrenians, but she does explain that when the death of a man, the soldier, the husband, is so probable, he wants to leave something of himself behind, and the wife wants a piece of him to remember him too, so babies. Lots and lots of babies. I think Robert Jordan just wanted to explain his knowledge about wartime babies in this part of the... Yeah, so he made this out here.
Spawning like Silver Pike.
Spawning like Silver Pike, according to Siuan. She has no such qualms about talking about it like that Kyrenian friend of hers does. Out of nowhere, Malin answers a question that her warder, Andro, never asked. He's impatient to leave, and she humors him. She's like, yes, Andro, we'll leave now. Moraine's eyes are like saucers. And it seems like they're reading each other's minds, and Malin can see it in her face, and also reads her mind and says, no, he's not reading my mind. We've just been together so long. The bond is very familiar. We know each other's feelings. We know what the other one is thinking to a degree. It's not mind reading. So with Andro so ready to roll, the Aes Sedai leave, and with their meals finished, the women have formed a line again. And now they know for sure that these two aren't full Aes Sedai sisters after witnessing their deference to 2 real Aes Sedai. So their cover is blown, the authority is gone, and from now on, it's just a shit show. Siuan's hair eventually is standing up on her head from her constantly raking her fingers through it out of stress. It's just screaming now and threats until Steeler approaches to tell them it's time to go. The sun is almost setting. They have to be back before sunset or everyone is in trouble. Steeler, the guardsmen, will be in trouble with their boss. You guys are going to be in trouble with your boss. We got to go. But there are still women in the queue who won't stand for it. And both Siuan and Moiraine want to get as many names as possible for obvious reasons. So everyone's protesting. The woman, the knowing woman from earlier that gave them the free wine, stirs up a mob to surround the guardsmen so that Siuan and Moiraine can finish up the lists quickly. The women waiting now in line don't give anybody any shit. They see that time is of the essence. There's no more embellishment of titles and lineages from the nobles. It's just the facts, and it goes quickly because everyone's heard the questions. They know what's going to be asked. So it's just blam, 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 blam. Couldn't we have done that from the beginning? Wouldn't it have been easier? But no. And by the time the guardsmen managed to break their way through the throng of women, they are done with the lists, finishing up the last one, in fact, blowing the ink dry, and they are ready to leave. They have to move their asses, though, so it's a rough ride back. Moiraine has to assign 2 of the guardsmen to ride on either side of Siuan so that she doesn't fall out of the saddle as they trot. They're not even galloping, they're trotting. But that's far too much for Siuan to handle. She thinks that maybe Siuan's not going to forgive her for pointing out how bad she writes. But listen, everyone's well aware of how bad you write, Siuan. Yeah. They can see it. And they make it back in the nick of time. Steele's report to his captain makes no mention of their disobedience at the end there. And there's even some respect from him. They've developed something. They really proved themselves today, and people noticed. That strange lady in the town noticed. Steele noticed. They really are young Aes Sedai in the making. Katarine is there, still unaccepted at this point, and still alive, unfortunately, with a message that the mistress of the novices, Moiraine, has summoned Moiraine to her study. Uh-oh, that's never a good sign. So Moiraine tells Siuan to head off. Siuan's like, I'll go with you, support you. She's like, nah, you go off to supper and bed. Here's some of that salve, that ointment to rub on your sore buttocks, and you go sort yourself out. And Moiraine and Katarine head off to Moiraine. She gets there, she knocks, she is told to enter. Turns out Moiraine is not in trouble. Moiraine is a kind and consoling Black Aja, as she tells her that her uncle, King Laman, has been killed, dun dun dun, along with his 2 brothers. Moiraine has lost 3 uncles today, and doesn't give a shit. They were all assholes, apparently, so good riddance. Yeah. Moiraine mutters a little prayer under her breath for them anyway. She's not a complete monster, but Moiraine is surprised at Moraine's lack of a reaction. It must be shock. You're in shock, It's like, I tell you what, why don't I give you the day off tomorrow? I'll tell the Amyrlin that you don't have to go out tomorrow, so you can have some time to mourn. But Moraine's like, no, you don't need to do that. No need. It's better if I keep busy and I'm surrounded by my friends, so my mind doesn't, wander onto that. And I'm not all alone and sad in my rooms all day, So the mistress of the novices acquiesces. Phew, close call. So she heads back to her rooms, Moiraine that is, to find a fire and the lamps lit. Thank you, Siuan. What a lovely friend. They have such a good friendship. And decides to skip dinner and spend the time in prayer for her uncle's souls, as a penance to herself for caring so little that they are dead. Before she goes to sleep, as she goes to sleep, she wards her dreams. Interesting. So that's the thing they teach accepted already, because they say that their dreams can float into each other's as they are next to each other sleeping. So, they are aware unconsciously of Tel'aran'rhiod, but warding their dreams is a thing they learn very early on. But it is not long before she is woken by nightmares of the Dragon Reborn, a faceless young man calling down lightning, a baby's cries as thunder, and other very dramatic symbology. So she gets up and sneaks into Siuan's rooms. Siuan is also awake, wouldn't you believe it, plagued by the same nightmares. Exactly the same, I don't know, but Dragon Reborn nightmares. Yeah. They talk a little about what the tower will do when they find the Dragon Reborn. They'll have to protect him, they can educate him, but then again, who's going to teach him to channel? We learn about, like teaching a fish teaching a bird to swim, whatever analogy they use that we've all heard before. That's going to happen. So they both lie there, unable to sleep, reliving their nightmares, even awake. End of chapter.
Willie, you look like you're bursting at the seams.
I really can't say that I've got a lot to add there. They finished capturing names, went home, break the news of Laman and his brothers, and go climb in bed with Siuan after nightmare.
The end. This is also, I had 5 notes for this chapter, where the others I had like a full page each.
Well, let us have them.
Okay, since you've asked.
Now, Moritz.
Oh, sorry.
Chop.
When Moiraine asked the question about why are so many people having babies during war, and she's given the pretty reasonable explanation, like you said, RJ just giving his explanation, obviously having been to war himself.
Yeah.
I also thought, and is there maybe a Ta'veren thing at play here? The pattern is spinning out the dragon. Were there just lots of babies now? I mean, obviously, it would have to start around about 9 months earlier.
Soldiers. Yeah.
But maybe, I don't know. Maybe the pattern works in mysterious ways. I also had a note. Elida is so fucking weird. seemingly expecting great things from both Siuan and Moiraine, but somehow being a bitch about it. Like, she's such a unique character, you know, like she does seem to have an interest in them and is pushing them really, really hard.
Yeah.
But she's not Black Archer, so she's not being evil, but she is being just lame about it, you know, like she is being very hard on them, which, you know, like just makes you dislike her from every interaction with her. You're just like, ugh.
Some people are just not nice. I mean, it's the world.
Kind of like as the Black Archer infiltrated the tower, they make a decision on, no, definitely keep this one here. And it's like the emphasis, like, keep her here. Maybe even one day we'll make an ambulance.
Yes,
like,
yes.
She'll wreck shit.
That works.
Like,
yes, and that does happen. Yeah.
No need to turn her.
Speaking of Black Archer, when Catelyn leaves them after giving the message, RJ uses the word flounced. She flounced off, and it is just such a great word. I can totally imagine Catelyn flouncing off. Just another note here that they are using the power to heat water, right? So like Elaine, Avienda, next time you get to a cold bath, you better be channeling to heat it up. Otherwise, I want to lose my shit. And then the last note is just that when Moiraine and Siuan are lying there talking about Rand and like what could possibly be done, no one can teach him to channel. Moiraine does say he can be guided. And then she thinks to herself, that would be the most important of all, to make sure he made the right decisions, which is like the defining characteristic of her character for the series, the proper series, right? Like that is her number one goal, is to just be at his side and help him make the right decisions. Which just reminded me how much I love Moiraine. Like she's one of my favorite characters. And that is it. Those are all my notes.
Yeah. Moiraine Kenobi.
Moiraine Kenobi, that's it.
Yeah.
Now, Jody Kenobi, did you remember to pick a favorite moment? You did. He nodded assuredly.
Turning over a new leaf? A spring leaf, if you will. My favorite part is when that lady, unknown lady, comes to her and gives her the spiced wine and says, oh, cool. I saw what you did there. She's that woman is super proud, would never ask for anything. What you did was kind and it was well done. Have some wine. Yeah, I was like, yeah. Recognition, bro.
Yeah.
Everybody wants recognition.
Yeah, very cool. Also, like, Siuan's constant sort of like advice to Moiraine in that same situation. Like at first, when Moiraine gives the silver coin to the lady to just go, until you get the gold, at least you can go see the wise woman. Siuan tells her, well, look, the wise woman would have taken the credit knowing that her name was taken down and she would be good for 100 gold crowns eventually.
Yeah.
But then when Moiraine does the thing about like, okay, let me heal your baby, just bring him over here. Siuan's like, yeah, well played. That's and you can just see like Siuan mentoring Moiraine already, even though they started on the same day, they got promoted to accept at the same time. Siuan is sort of also, like already acting in a mentor role. So like when Siuan says to Moiraine something like, oh, that was well done, that also feels good. So like these random strangers doing it to Moiraine, but also when Siuan does it, it's cool.
That was my favorite chapter, was this last one. Also that when she's about to dismiss that woman, that Susa Wynn, and Siuan just touches her arm without even looking at her direction. She's still talking and taking down notes, but just says like, just touching her, and they know, Moiraine knows that means take a closer look. Like just pause and investigate a little bit more.
Very cool.
It's like, oh, right. Yeah.
How about you, Vil? Favorite moment?
Absolutely, Matt. Sorry. No, for me, I would say my favorite moment very much was around Siuan's inability to do anything on a horse.
Still.
Trying to get on the horse means she falls off the other side of the horse nearly. Someone putting her attention off while riding a horse means she nearly falls off the horse. It's comical that someone can't ride a horse, and it's the number one mode of transport in the land.
That's the
it's like
qualifier there.
Yeah.
I wonder how closely the two guards on either side of her had to ride
to make sure she doesn't fall
she
off.
doesn't fall off. Like to be like really like squeezing her in.
From the get-go, they must have gone like, oh shit, we're going to be in trouble for this one falling off the horse.
We're going to earn our wages today.
And that continues. That it continues.
I mean,
Bella,
yes.
She never learns.
Through.
20 years later. Yeah.
I suppose when she became an Aes Sedai or Amyrlin Seat, she decided she could just be carried around in like a litter,
Yes, 100%.
carriages.
100%.
I'm not getting on a horse ever again.
And just from a poor family, they couldn't afford a horse. They were fishermen. They didn't have horses, so she didn't come across them naturally in her life leading up to that point. Moiraine, on the other side, like to juxtapose with Siuan, is like the stable hand is all like cheeky, like, who do you want to hand up? And Moraine's like, no, just puts her foot in the stirrup, swings herself up like she's an accomplished rider already.
Yeah.
Which is going to come in handy when she goes on her many adventures as soon as she's raised to the shore and just bolts from the
I
tower.
think that was the defining factor. Like when they eventually get to the point where it's either Moiraine or Siuan that's got to be Amyrlin Seat. And then Moiraine said, well, the other one's got to go look for the Dragon Reborn, and you can't ride for shit. So
you see that,
you sitting
you see
on
that
the
happening here. I mean, like Moiraine preparing with like the dagger and like all the equipment and the stuff, like preparing for an adventure, basically fits what she eventually does. And then the guidance coming from Siuan, you know, like telling Moiraine, like, you know, just putting her hand on her arm, or like, this would have happened if you had let this go, this would have been fine. Like you can see their two little arcs already spreading out in front of them, and then both of them exhibiting exactly the characteristics that you need them to display. My favorite moment. Oh, sorry, Joe. You had another thing to say about that.
I'm just thinking like it happens really soon that Siuan is raised to Amyrlin.
I think she was only Amyrlin for 10 years at the point that we meet her in the Dragon Reborn. So 10 years.
So
from
in
here.
the next 10 years from now, like Moiraine is saying, yeah, in the next 100 years and then another 50 more, that's 10. Boom. So it's basically a child.
It's often stated in the
die.
story. It's often stated in the story how young and quickly Siuan became Amyrlin. It'd be interesting to see how
fucking
that plays
quickly.
out.
Like really, really quickly.
Yeah.
In Aes Sedai timelines. All right, Moritz, what's your favorite part?
Yes. I thought for sure you guys would pick this because it is the most like lowbrow, easy favorite moment. And that is when all the Aiel acknowledge Lan on the ridge.
Oh, you're right.
They just say An Alien and they salute to him and they just skirt the ridge and they run off. And coupled with that, like Lan's confusion, like what just happened? Why did they just say one alone or whatever? You know, like,
one man alone, yeah.
One man alone, which is cool. I had an honorable mention though that is Siuan related, and that is when she does the loudspeaker weave and everyone just falls in line. Just another example of Siuan's going to be the Amyrlin. She's going to be the one calling the shots. Yeah, people are going to jump when she says jump. Then we have a favorite moment from Jonna Pierce. She says,
she's on a roll.
My favorite part of this little first bit is when the girls are practicing and Morel raises Moiraine up in the air and turns her upside down. I get a laugh out of that every time. Honorable mention would be the Aiel and Lan. Thanks, Jonna. They rock up to Lan and he's thinking they are going to be overrun by the sheer numbers, and instead they compliment him in a way he doesn't understand, and then off they go on their merry way without a single arrow or blow being made. They knew what they came for and it had been accomplished, so they were just like, bye now.
Yeah. No hard feelings there, guys. Cheers.
Yeah. We got Laman. See ya. Bye. Thanks, Jonna. So to our other listeners, be like Jonna and the gang and send us your favorite moments, your theories, corrections for us, and answers and clarifications. We need them. You can go to bloodandashespodcast.com to leave a text or voice message or buy a t-shirt, or go to any of the social media links in the episode description to send us a message. Please rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app, and when you've done all of that, you can flip open New Spring to prepare for next time on Blood and Ashes, where we will cover chapters 6 through 12. Jody doing me.
I refuse. I'm not doing it.
7 chapters.
Moritz will do 3 of them.
I will do 0 of them.
Me and you doing this. Moritz does the epilogue at the end.
I see. I looked at the list.
Allocation's done.
Let me quickly pull up my spreadsheet here and I'll tell you how long those chapters are. Some of these
they're tiny.
Some of these are super, super short.
Yeah. And I think Willie has 4 of those 7, and I have 3 of them. Or vice versa. Someone's cucking.
Joe, you've got 4. Will has 3.
God damn it, I'm cucking. But later on, it balances out.
Yes, it all balances out, and it's all like, it's not number of chapters, it's the length of the chapters that makes a difference. And there are some real short ones in here. I want to say like single digit 2 or 3 times. So it's really short. When I pick the chapters, it's always, my starting point is I aim for as close to 75 pages for an episode, between 75 and 85.
100.
It used to be 100 in the first season.
This was
100 pages.
I always remember it being 100.
106 pages.
Really? Not in mine.
Yeah. Could I end this podcast on a bit of a sad note?
Oh, please.
Oh, please. No. One of our longtime followers passed away last weekend. I don't know if I've mentioned before Yvette and Marlene, because we have another yes. Marlene. Marlene passed away last week.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Yeah, she, the Court family, so I just assumed in the past that everyone knew the Courts like the Fun of Estations know the Court, but apparently it's not like that. But yeah, the drummer in my brother's band, that's Jan Adrian, was like, there's a whole long family history. Anyway, it was Yvette and Marlene. They've been together forever. It's like Turk and JD, Troy and Abed, Yvette and Marlene went in just for surgery to get something fixed and had a massive stroke and was no more within a day. So, may she rest in the palm of the Creator.
Mm-hmm. We all wake from the dream.
We all wake from the dream, and condolences to the family there, and to Yvette if she's listening to this podcast as well.
Yeah.
Condolences from all of us.
Yo.
All right. Well, on that somber note,
yes,
I think it is time for us to call it an episode.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe in honor of our final call out here, I will not sign off with our regular sign off. Just say to everyone,
right,
see you next time.
Until next time, guys.
Cheerio, everyone. Good night.